Is it time for the pre-show? It is. It's today's pre-show for our SY0-601 Security Plus Study Group. Hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us. If you're here live, welcome aboard. If you are watching this on the replay, welcome aboard even more, I guess, because you get to watch it over and over and over again. And boy, I highly encourage that. We've got a lot to go through today. This is our pre-show. We'll get started in about 10 minutes. You can see we're about 11:50 and some change there. We'll get started at the top of the hour. And we've got SY0-601 Security Plus questions in the first hour. And we've got open chat in the second hour. I'll answer any questions you have. We'll talk about life, the universe, and effectively everything. So we'll go through all of those. Hi, everybody. Hey, chat room. Everybody's checking in. Everybody's here. Some folks are busy. I think we saw earlier, William said in the chat room, passed my Security Plus with a 768 on the 13th on the first try. Congratulations for your Security Plus certification. It really feels good to have that done, doesn't it? It's a big exam. There's a lot of content. So it's really nice to have that out of the way. Congratulations, William, on your new Security Plus certification. That's pretty awesome. Oh, hello, chat room. How's everybody doing? See, Houston checking in. Good to have you here again, Jeff. Thanks for being here. We've got some other folks that are popping in. I think everybody should be getting their notification at this point. Let's check cameras. Do we have a camera? We do. How's the height? Is that too much? Am I too far left? Am I too far right? It's the constant thing, the constant problem, constant challenge. Okay, we can pause that. See how we do. See how we do with the rest of this. Okay, let's quickly check. We've got cameras look good, thankfully. The on-air audio video looks good. Test. Yes, we're good there. We've got, is this up? That camera's up. We're good there. Oh, everything looks pretty good. You can see our Cylons down here, so we are recording. That's going, so that's good. It's always good to have a recording afterwards. There have been times where I've had to go back to YouTube for the recording. So even though I've got two recordings going right here, that doesn't always mean I have two recordings going right here. When I'm done with this, is there going to be a recording? We'll find out. That's always the worry when you're making content online. Are we really doing this? Is it really recording? What happens at the end? And that can be a bit frustrating to work through that. We'll talk about links and all of those things, now the credits and all of that stuff. If the credits as far as CEUs, continuing education units, are concerned, you will earn a 1 hour of a webinar category CEU by watching this or any of the replays. You can watch a replay and submit a CEU request as well. Obviously, for Security Plus, you can only use 10 of the webinar category CEUs to apply towards your 50 CEUs, 50 CEUs that you would need to renew your certification, or you could just not do any of the CEU stuff at all and simply do the CertMaster CE. There's some other options, or you could take another exam, or you could do other things. So there's a lot to work through. We got Florida checking in. Charlotte County, Florida is checking in. Thanks for being here. The other Floridians are figuring out. The other East Coasters checking in. We have folks, though, checking in from all over the world. The time is relative, as they say. All right, let's get rid of that. Let's turn on. That looks good. We have all new Security Plus questions, and I know this because I wrote them this weekend. Actually, I think it kind of blended into Monday. Usually I like to get these questions done about a week in advance. I wish I could do more than that, but I think I got them done days in advance. But they're done. And that's the important part. And they're all brand new, so we'll see how we do. Hello, San Antonio. Hello, Puerto Rico. Hello, Memphis and Oklahoma and Virginia Beach, Virginia. And New Jersey is here. McAllen, Texas checking in. Ghana is here. There's some folks from all over that are here. Grenada and Bulgaria, of course. Thanks for being here. There's more Florida. Bradenton, Florida checking in. There's Brooklyn. Good to have you here. St. Louis or Louis or Lewis or Louis. Do I have to pronounce things many, many times? I probably do, just to see one of those will be right eventually. Hey, Malk from St. Vincent. Good to have you here again. There's Australia and the UK and Vancouver, British Columbia. There's West Coast. Good to have you here. Hello, Czech Republic and Indiana and Maryland and Norway and San Antonio and South Africa and West Palm Beach, Florida. Sydney, New South Wales is here. San Antonio, it's going too fast now. San Antonio, Jacksonville, Las Vegas, Ohio, Kansas City, San Diego, Sunday. Oh, we've got a lot. Look at all these folks checking in from everywhere. Thanks for being here, everybody. We got lots of Q&A today. We've got all Security Plus, and then, of course, the after show. You can ask whatever questions you'd like. We got 4 minutes to go before we get started. This is not the show. This is not this is the pre-show. Some folks have sent me emails recently saying, I was going to watch, but it was really just the back of your head, and you never talked about anything. And they're not wrong. I guess that's true. You have to wait about 10 minutes, and then finally I talk about something. Eventually, you will see me like this, so don't worry. We've got more to do. We've got regular South Wales, not just the new one. We've got the regular one. We got China and Pakistan and Chicago and Nova Scotia and Maryland and India, Nigeria and Philippines and Mississippi and Newark, New Jersey and more Vancouver and more Virginia. L.A., Los Angeles is here. Los Angeles, as Bugs Bunny would famously say. I guess they don't do that anymore. They don't really pronounce it that way anymore. Was that a thing? Was that a Bugs Bunny thing, or was it a thing? That's the real question. Los Angeles. I think it was probably a short-lived thing, thankfully. Hello, Michigan and Pakistan and Brazil and Georgia and Chicago and New Mexico. We got TR in the chat room coming in strong with a $20 super chat, TR. TR says, passed by Security Plus on August the 4th after 3 months of studying and my first attempt. And I would say, by the way, TR, that's probably right there average. That is exactly what most people do. 3 months of study, boom, they go take the exam. TR says, couldn't have done it without your success package and PEs. Those would be the practice exams. We'll talk about those later. I sincerely appreciate all the free content you've provided. CySA Plus is next. That's great. Fantastic. This keyboard model, thanks for asking, is a Logitech something. It's a Logitech 850 something. Is it even written on the back of this? I question. No, of course not. Why would you do that to me, Logitech? But we can find out later. I think I have the box around here somewhere because I just bought another one. So I've got it somewhere around here. Is it behind me? I can't see. Let me see. Back here in the back, you can see there is stuff you can't really see. But there are things back there. But I can't see the name of the keyboard. It's like an Ergo 850 or Ergo 840, something like that. And it is a wireless, and it's the feel is amazing. It really does type nicely. Types nicer than the Microsoft ergonomic. So if you're into ergonomics, that works pretty well. You can't even see it because now we're not in the light. Do I have a light here somewhere? No, I do not. You'd have to turn around like this. There we go. There's the Logitech K850 ergonomic, something like that. It's awesome. It works great. It has served me well. In fact, this one is now wearing out. I go through keyboards about once a year. So this one is getting close to, I think, it's time to swap out. We'll have to swap that out shortly. I know because the space bar is squeaking. That's how you know. I want to go back, though, to TR's super chat. Thank you so much, TR, for the $20 super chat. Congratulations on your Security Plus, and best of luck with the CySA Plus. I know I don't have any videos for CySA Plus, but that'll be a good one. Woodis in the chat room with the $10 super chat. Passed my Security Plus about 2 weeks ago. Used my podcast study group version. Helped me study. Good for you. That's our replay of this study group that we have in podcast formats, an audio only format. Woodis says, keep doing what you're doing because you make a difference. Thank you. I like to hear that because that's very motivating, because these can be very long nights. My normal work day is a lot. I stay in here quite a bit. Let's get Keynote going. It's top of the hour. We got a green light. We do have a green light. So now I think we're ready to start a live stream. If you are here, I think we're in pretty good shape. We'll talk more about CEUs in a moment. Let's get everything ready to go and do a live stream. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the August 2022 Professor Messer SY0-601 Security+ Study Group. This is our monthly study group where I ask you questions that come directly from the CompTIA exam objectives, and then you online and interactively can answer these questions as we're going through. Thank you, everyone who's here live that can participate, but even if you're not live, stick around. We've got plenty to go through, and you can kind of keep track of the things that we're doing and all of the details we'll go through. But if you are here live, you can participate by visiting a website and answering the questions interactively. You'll simply pop open a new browser window and go to the link professormesser.com/QA. The QA, what's that QA stand for? I don't know. It stands for something. professormesser.com/QA, which is here on the screen and here on the screen. And I had it popped up again on the screen right there, which I didn't mean to do, but there it is. That will open up and have a question waiting for you. So that would be a good one to go through. We'll go through that question in a second. There's also an app for this. Of course there is. The app for this is the Socrative student app. Socrative is the name of the service we use for this. So Socrative student app is the one you want. It will ask you for a room name. That room name is Professor Messer, all one word, PROFESSORMESSER. And if you do that, there will be a question waiting for you in that room. That question asks, a company has determined that 10 tablets are stolen or lost in a single year. Which of the following would best describe this statistic? Is it ARO, SLE, QOS, SLA, or ALE? Now, we aren't going to answer in the chat room. We're instead going to use this link that's right there on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Please put your answers there. We will come back to this question in just a moment. There's plenty to go through, but we will come back and break this down and see how we do. This is our rewind question. If you think you recognize it, it's one from last month. We're going to see if you know this one, and then we'll know that you're able to get in and answer all of these questions that are in our online interactive question and answer. Well, thank you for being here. We have so much to go through today. I've got all new content. We've got lots of new questions. And of course, we'll open up the chat for questions in the second hour. We've got a lot to go through. If you're not watching this live, you may want to see what we're doing when we're not doing a live stream. You can find us on YouTube at professormesser.com/YouTube. We've also got a weekly Security Plus pop quiz question. You can find that at professormesser.com/Twitter and professormesser.com/Instagram. All of those will work extremely well for you to find the things that you might be looking for. We've also got other places and other online services. We'll talk about those in a moment as well. There are plenty of things to know about the Security Plus exam. But before you get started with your studies, you should know that the current version is the SY0-601. That's the only version that's currently available as we sit here in August of 2022. This was a version of the exam that was released on November the 12th of 2020. That means if we have to estimate when the retirement of this exam would be, it would be somewhere around May of 2024. That's a best guess, and I think as we get closer to May of 2024, we'll have a more specific retirement date that we can provide for you. This is a single exam, thankfully, that you would have to take. It's 90 minutes long with a maximum of 90 questions. The grading scale for this exam is a scale from 100 to 900, which is exactly the same as pretty much all of the CompTIA exams, and you need to score a 750 to pass this exam. You have to be able to know both multiple choice and answer performance-based questions on this exam, and we'll talk about what some of those performance-based questions might be in just a moment. Also let you know that all of my videos for Security Plus, the entire course is available for you to watch online for free. You can go to the Professor Messer website or go to my YouTube playlist. I've got everything there. You don't have to register. You don't have to give me any information. You simply click and watch the videos. It's that easy to learn everything you need to learn for your Security Plus exam. There are other types of study materials you may want to consider, and I've put together everything that I offer into one single success bundle. This includes not only offline versions of my videos, but I've also got MP3 audio versions of those videos. I've got course notes. I've got practice exams. I've got my Exam Hacks ebook. There's so much that can help you pass this exam, and that's our goal, is to give you all of the tools you need to make that happen. My Success Bundle is also available on a USB drive. There it is. Even got a little logo on it. So you'll know, I guess you know it came from me. And all the digital products are on that as well. You can get both the digital and the physical versions of these. Find out more on my website at professormesser.com/601SB. As I mentioned earlier, these podcasts are available on my website. You can have them automatically downloaded to your podcast listening program by visiting professormesser.com/podcast and simply use the links there to either add the RSS feed to your favorite podcast listening program, or you can simply stream it directly from that page. Either one works great for me. There's also a video replay available on YouTube. It's available immediately after we're done here. It takes a minute or two to process, and then that video is available for you to watch. If you wait about a day or so, you'll notice that timestamps will appear in that video, almost like magic. Almost, except the magician in this case is my marketing manager, Lori. Hey, Lori. She's watching this replay, and she's putting down all of these stamps, these timestamps, into the YouTube video description. So she has to sit through the whole thing, hopefully at 2 times speed, maybe, or 2.5, somewhere in there. Hopefully it's not in real time, but she's going through and putting all those timestamps there. And you can go back years to find all of the information that you might need for this certification exam. I've also got a Discord server. This is a text chat that's available when we're not doing one of these live streams. You can add yourself to our Discord server by visiting professormesser.com/Discord. I've also got a link on my website in the upper right. You can just click the Discord icon that's on the website, and you'll be able to join us. That's where I'm usually hanging out when I'm not here live. And it's a great way to talk with others who might also be studying for their exam. Also let you know that eventually you're going to need to take the exam. That's the idea, right? And you're going to need to pay to take that exam. One very easy way to pay is by getting a voucher. You can purchase a voucher sometimes at a discount. So don't pay full price on the CompTIA website. You instead want to visit professormesser.com/vouchers if you are in the U.S. or Canada, and you can purchase your vouchers from there. This is also good for Puerto Rico, Guam, and other U.S. territories as well. If you do purchase your voucher from my website, not only is it discounted, but you also get a free copy of my Exam Hacks ebook. This is an ebook that you can't purchase. You can only get it with my Success Bundles or when you purchase a voucher. So this is a very easy way to get a list of what I call life hacks, but I guess everybody calls them life hacks, but they're more exam hacks. That some tips, some tricks for studying, some tips and tricks for the exam itself that might be able to help you get a few extra points while you're sitting in the chair during the exam. Those tips and tricks are in this book, so you can find them, and they're available to you free if you purchase the voucher from my site. Let's now look at that question we asked earlier. This was our rewind question from last month. This question asked, a company has determined that 10 tablets are stolen or lost in a single year. Which of the following would best describe this statistic? Is it, let's put me in there. There we go. Is it ARO, SLE, QoS, SLA, or ALE? And all of you answered, and we're sort of torn. Almost an exact match, a tie for first place. ALE has squeaked out by 2 percentage points at 40% over ARO, which came in at 38%. And then we got 13% said SLE. We've got 5% that said SLA, and then 4% said QoS. So we've got a few to go through. I think one of the things that we can look at when we're talking about items that are lost or stolen, we have to kind of plan for this when we're working through budgeting. We're planning to decide what is the risk going to be for our organization over the next 12 months. And one way that you could do that is to determine how often do we think this particular risk is going to occur. We might have to look at things that have occurred in the past. We might have to look at what other people are having to go through and then estimate ourselves, how many times is this going to happen? Because if we know how many times a risk will occur, we can then start putting some numbers to it to determine what's going to be the cost of this risk occurring during that time frame. And an annualized rate of occurrence, an ARO, is the way that you determine how many times a particular risk might occur. This is an estimate in most cases, but this is something that can help us really determine how much money will be spent. And in this case, we're dealing with a company that has determined that 10 tablets are lost or stolen in a single year. That indeed is an annualized rate of occurrence. If you answered A, ARO, then you got this one absolutely right. That is the correct answer. I think most people were able to remember that one. ARO, 41%. Now everybody's getting on to the right answer. So the people that have just arrived, now it's 41%. It's even better. We're doing better than we did before. ARO was the one that we were looking for. That is the annualized rate of occurrence. There are a number of statistics and measurements that you can use to quantitatively determine what the risk of a particular thing might be. And that might be a single loss expectancy. If we know that every laptop costs us $1,000 and we're going to lose 10 laptops, then that's going to cost us $10,000. That's an ARO multiplied by the single loss expectancy, or SLE. And then we've got, or single loss expectancy is 1, and then you annualize that by multiplying it to the ARO with the ALE. So hopefully I've made that clear as mud. In an attempt to go through that quickly, I feel like I did not do you a very good service. Let's go back and watch the video. Here we go. There's your final one. Don't listen to me. Simply go to the video where you can listen to me. Section 5.4 of risk analysis is the one that can help you. So there's the one you want to go to that might help you if you're trying to determine more about a quantitative risk assessment and how that might be used. That's good statistics to know and important things to memorize for the Security+ exam, obviously coming directly from the CompTIA exam objectives. Now let's change our gears just a little bit. I mentioned earlier that on the exam, you might get a multiple choice-based question. In fact, much of the exam, very similar to this one, where you have a question and then multiple choices that you could select. But this means that even if we didn't know the answer, we could have gotten this one at least 20% correct. If we guessed correctly, we had that 20% chance of getting it right. So that's one that is sometimes gives you a little bit of extra help. But there are a number of questions right at the beginning of the exam that CompTIA calls performance-based questions. Performance-based questions are still questions that come directly from the exam objectives. They're just not multiple choice-based questions. They might be fill in the blank. They might put you to a command prompt and ask you to perform a function. They might it might be a matching question. You might have a drag and drop question. There are a lot of different styles of questions, but all of the content is still coming directly from the exam objectives. So don't get thrown that CompTIA is asking these questions in a different way, because if you know the content, it really doesn't matter how they ask the question. You'll be able to get the question right. And a good example of that is our performance-based question of the month. As many of you know that have been here before, the first new question of every study group is a performance-based question. And here is your performance-based question of the month. This one is a matching question, and it says match the secure protocol to the traffic flow. Some traffic flows will not have a match. That means I have 4 different protocols here, and I have 7 different traffic flows. So now I have to determine what 4 of these are going to match. That means we'll have 3 left over at the end for those of you doing the math. The 4 different secure protocols are STP, LDAP-S, SRTP, and SNMP v3. That's SFTP, LDAP-S, SRTP, and SNMP v3. Now we have 7 different scenarios, 7 different flows of data. The first is users are validated on a centralized authentication server. The second is securely access a command line terminal across the network. Answer C is an administrator receives a notification that a router has failed. D is digitally sign an email sent to an associate. E is Send files between servers over an encrypted channel. F is a salesperson attends the Monday morning conference call. And G is resolve the IP address from an FQDN. There are your 7 different traffic flows. I want you to match those. If you think they're already matched, all you have to put is 1A, 2B, 3C, 4D, and you're done. Now, obviously, it's not going to be that easy, is it? So you're going to need to go back and have a look at your links to see what's there. While you're doing that, I want to thank the folks that have already sent in some super chats. TR with his $20 super chat. Woodison with his $10 their $10 super chat. I don't want to misspeak there. Eric with the $1.99 super chat, who says, good to be here. It's good to have you here, Eric. Thank you for your support and the super chat. I didn't forget about you. It came in there right at the beginning. I wanted to be sure to call you out and thank you for that. We appreciate all of your support. Helps keeps these lights on, helps keep the whole system going. So thank you so much for doing that. A $10 super chat. If I light a fire, this is the challenge, of course, is people don't. I don't think I have a pilot light set on my fireplace right now, though. One of these days we'll have to turn it on. Plus, it's kind of warm outside. It's summertime here in Florida, so I don't think we're going to do a fire. We'll have the air conditioning fighting with the fire for those. So we'll get your super chat in the wintertime. How's that one? We'll work it out that way. These secure protocols, this is only 4 of the many secure protocols that you need to know. So all of the ones that are on here, and in fact, I'll take a little bit of extra credit from you. If you have 3 of these left over, see if you know what secure protocol is associated with the 3 that are left over. There's a little extra. So I'll have to see if that makes sense to you. Yes, fortunately, the ceilings are a little bit higher than Hobbiton here. We got at least enough room to put some lights in. It's always a challenge. So you can't see them, but there are lights here. There's lights here. They're all hanging from the ceiling. There's a lot going on here. I'm sorry that we're not going to have a way to light the fire for you. We'll have to do that next time. Figure out the details of that. Now, drop in or answer your this particular question on our link right here at the bottom, professormesser.com/QA. That's the link you should use to answer all the questions. In fact, if you just stay on that link, all of the questions will automatically update themselves as we go through this live stream. So that'll be a good one. So TR says, got to go back to work. Wanted to drop in, give the donation for your help. Thank you, TR. That's so nice of you. We appreciate your support more than we can even tell you. I say that on the live streams, but really do appreciate everything that all of you do. Just watching the videos is remarkable enough. And it does go towards keeping all of this going. So thank you so much for all of that. There's always something interesting going on here. We're always working to make more content all the time. And all this does is just motivate me more. Why would I need to sleep? I should just make more content. That'd be the way to do it. So lock in your answers on this one. For those of you listening in the podcast, we're dealing with SFTP, LDAP-S, SRTP, SNMPv3, and the 7 different data flows or traffic flows are: users are validated on a centralized authentication server, securely access a command line terminal across the network, an administrator receives a notification that a router has failed, digitally sign an email sent to an associate, send files between servers over an encrypted channel, a salesperson attends the Monday morning conference call, I see you there, and then resolve the IP address from an FQDN. Now let's see if we can step through these 4 secure protocols and see if we happen to know which one matches up with the other. By the way, before we get into the details of this is not an uncommon way for CompTIA to address these types of questions. In fact, let me go back one here. You'll notice that all of these secure protocols are listed on the left side because we've got things like SFTP, LDAP-S, SRTP, and SNMPv3. But notice I did not ask you what those things meant. A lot of people spend time with flashcards going through SFTP means Secure File Transfer Protocol, but then they stop. They think that's it. You don't need to know anything else. But CompTIA wants you to know, what is that? How does it work? When would you use that? In what way would you apply that technology to the network? And so that's another step you should always be taking. So we're going to do that right now. We're going to step through each one of these. So let's start with SFTP, which I've already told you is Secure File Transfer Protocol. That means answer E, send files between servers over an encrypted channel. In fact, that's exactly what it does. It's able to transfer files. That's sort of like FTP, which you're probably familiar with, which is a very generic form of file transfer protocol. Well, you put the S in the front, and interestingly enough, there's one with an S at the end. But put it on either side. It's different ways of doing the file transfer protocol in each of those situations, but both of them do the same thing, which is allow you to send those files from one device to the other, but all of the data is encrypted, therefore a secure protocol. Next on our list, LDAP-S, the Lightweight Directory Access Protocol Secure, the secure form of LDAP. And when we say it's a lightweight directory access, well, then obviously that has something to do with a database of information. So we have absolutely a way to have usernames, passwords, machines, and other devices, and those are things that we can authenticate against. So if somebody is logging into the network, maybe they're logging into their VPN, they're logging into a file transfer server, they're logging in and authenticating in some way, we need to validate that authentication. Are they using the right password? Are they using the right email address? Are they using the right username? Whatever you use to authenticate. So we need to check against a centralized database or a centralized directory. That's what we call it in this world of authentication. So LDAP-S is a very common way to access a database like this, in this case, a directory that has all of that information. And this is the secure form of LDAP, LDAP-S. It's exactly what it is. Next on our list, SRTP, the real-time protocol. The S at the beginning obviously means secure. It tends to come up a lot. Real-time protocol is something that we would use for most of the time it's streaming audio, but it could also be streaming video. Most of the time we refer to SRTP as something would use over voice over IP, which means that the data flow that would fit with SRTP is answer F. A salesperson attends the Monday morning conference call. And if you've been on the Monday morning conference call, you know how painful that can be. This is obviously voice over IP that would be used here. Somebody didn't mute. I hear an echo. All the things you would love about a conference call are all there, and they are sent across that link, and you're able to hear it thanks to the secure version of real-time protocol, SRTP. Last on our list, as other folks in the chat room, yes, those conference calls are the worst. I've got years of them in my back pocket, thankfully behind me. No more Monday morning conference calls for me, thankfully. And lastly on our list, SNMP v3, a very specific type of SNMP. And SNMP is the Simple Network Management Protocol. Version 3 is the implementation of SNMP that includes encryption. So we're able to send this information across the network securely. SNMP is primarily associated with accessing devices and retrieving statistics and metrics about how those devices are performing. So if we are accessing a router or switch or server or firewall or practically anything else on the network, we can start gathering information about how much data is being transferred, how many errors has this device seen. And then we can also set SNMP, not just these queries or gets, as we call them with SNMP. We can also have that device proactively tell us when a problem has occurred. We refer to those as SNMP traps. Why do we call them traps? I don't know. They're just alarms and alerts, which is pretty much how we talk about these things in the world. There are alarms and alerts, but they're called SNMP traps. That's what we call them in the standard. And the version of SNMP v3 is the encrypted version, which can tell an administrator that a router may have failed. That's done all the time with SNMP. And if you get to a point where you're doing anything with network management, you're going to be using SNMP. I guarantee you it is used everywhere. Well, that means we have 3 left over. We have securely access a command line terminal across the network, digitally sign an email sent to an associate, and resolve the IP address from a fully qualified domain name. So the question now becomes, what secure protocol could we plug into those and still have this kind of cover, this matching, even though there is not a match associated with that. Securely accessing a command line terminal across the network. That's one that would be relatively familiar to most of you. If you've ever performed a secure shell or SSH to a device, you are at the command line of that remote device. And it obviously is one that is going to provide you with encryption, because encryption is built into the secure shell protocol. That's the secure part of secure shell. We've got others in here. Digitally sign an email sent to an associate. There are a number of different ways to securely sign an email. In fact, if you receive a CEU email from me, and we'll talk later about how you can do that, I digitally sign that email using PGP. And I would sort of accept that because PGP is in the exam objectives. But you could also put SMIME, MIME being the multimedia, or in this case, email type of message exchange, but it can support other types of message exchange. This is the secure form of MIME or SMIME. And digitally signing, in fact, if you use Outlook and you notice that there is an option in your toolbar to click to digitally sign this email, it's using SMIME to do that in most cases, unless you are specifically using PGP for something like that. And last on our list is resolve the IP address from an FQDN. Resolving an IP address from an FQDN. Normally, resolving IP addresses should automatically in your mind think DNS, the domain name system. But we're talking about a secure version of DNS. So in this case, it would be DNSSEC, which would be DNS with that secure version kind of built into it. So that should give you some scope or ideas on other protocols that could be used. And of course, SSH, SMIME, and DNSSEC are also in the exam objectives. There are other secure protocols in the exam objectives, so I highly recommend you go look at that list. It is in section 3.1 of the exam objectives. I have a video on every single one of them called Secure Protocols, so that can help you as well. DNS would be incorrect because we asked for the secure protocol for the traffic flow. DNS by itself, not secure. Not entirely true. There is a lot of changes going on with DNS right now, but DNSSEC is the one that's in the exam objectives that I was looking for all of this. We're trying to find new ways to make DNS more secure, and there are some great ways to do it, but it's a little bit outside the scope of Security+, but we're working on it. We're getting much better with DNS because right now, people may not be able to see what you are doing on a website, but if they can capture the DNS queries, they might see what sites you might be visiting. And that by itself may be more information than you're willing to share with someone else. So DNSSEC might help you along those lines. We'll certainly address and look through all of those. Those are the answers to this month's performance-based question. SFTP sends files between servers over an encrypted channel. LDAP-S is where users are validated on a centralized authentication server. SRTP is a salesperson attends the Monday morning conference call. How's your number? Did that deal come in? SNMP-v3, an administrator receives a notification that a router has failed. SSH is securely accessed command line terminal across the network. SMIME is digitally sign an email sent to an associate. And DNSSEC is resolve the IP address from a fully qualified domain name. And if you think you got those right, then you're doing a very good job with your secure protocols. Make sure you're familiar with all of those when you're ready to take this exam. Pretty important. Before we move on to our next multiple choice-based question, we're going to do a multiple choice next. I want to thank Brandon in the chat room with the $20 super chat. Brandon says, I passed the A+ and Network Plus thanks to your content. Just purchased my Security+ voucher. Plan to take it next week. I'll be looking for that. Hopefully you purchased that voucher from the website. Getting in some final studying before the test. Thank you for all you do. Thank you, Brandon. We appreciate that super chat. Thank you for your support. Thank you for letting everybody know how things are going as well. I love when I see multiple certifications show up when people are really applying and trying to find a way to position themselves for this next generation of technology, really careers. I think today about how things have changed over the last 10 years. I think the next 10 years are just going to be amazing with IT, the technologies that we're coming out with. So you're right on track. Get that A+, get that Network Plus, get that Security+, and keep going. Never stop. Keep always learning, and you're going to do great in the world of IT. Also want to thank Apollo in the chat room with the $5 super chat. Apollo says, I passed my 1101 yesterday. Thanks to your videos. That's the latest, one of the latest A+ exams. Highest quality free CompTIA study materials I've seen. I think you've got me in a very narrow description there, but I'm taking it. I'm going with, we have the highest quality free CompTIA study materials in the world, in the universe. I appreciate that, Apollo. Thank you for the $5 super chat as well and your ongoing support. Congratulations on your 1101 and best of luck with your 1102. Instead of LDAP-S, could we use Radius if we wanted to? If you use the secure version of Radius, I think that would apply, but I don't believe the secure version of Radius is listed in the exam objectives. So I would not necessarily accept that, but this was a matching question. And we sort of added the ones at the end for a little bit of extra detail. But obviously we had LDAP-S on the screen, so that is the only one that we would have accepted for that particular answer. If it was a fill in the blank, I would have probably accepted either one of those. I would have accepted TACAX Plus. I would have accepted, because there is a secure version of that. I would have accepted Kerberos. I mean, all of those pretty much can validate the authentication process. So that's one that you can go through. Lots to go through with all of those. So hopefully that can help you get those secure protocols down. Let's now shift gears back to a multiple choice based question. And let's see how you do with this one. Put your security hats on for this next question that asks, if I click the button on my side, a security administrator needs to prevent all communication between two subnets. Which of the following would be the best option for this requirement? Would it be cold aisle, IPsec tunnel, air gap, biometric locks, next generation firewall? I'm really torn on this one. I could go like a couple of ways with this question. We can talk about that in a moment. The question again asked, a security administrator needs to prevent all communication between two subnets. Which of the following would be the best option for this requirement? Would it be cold aisle, IPsec tunnel, air gap, biometric locks, and next generation firewall? Which one would it be? Well, don't answer in the chat room. Instead, you want to follow the link that is on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. No hints in the chat room either. I see some of you wanting to put some hints, and no Googling. No Googling with this. And some of you are saying, yes, I'm with some of you like, that's not what I would do. I wouldn't do any of these. Well, that wasn't the question. The question was, which of the following would be the best option for this requirement? So you only have those 5 to choose from. So of those 5, which one is the best? This is something that's relatively common on the CompTIA exams, by the way. What you think the answer might be, or the thing that you might do, is not listed. And that's by design. Sometimes the most common answer is not there, so that you will have to decide between things that may not be optimal. And quite honestly, in the world of IT, you will often have different options unavailable to you, or need to choose from options that indeed are not optimal. Sort of the nature of the beast. So I think that's what I would recommend is look through this list, see what you would choose. I know what I would choose. I know what the answer is, but I'm leaning another direction. I might get this one wrong just because, and I'll explain why. I don't want to give too much away, but some of these I will get wrong. But there is an obvious correct answer. This is one of those, and this has come up recently in the past week, where people have said, these are trick questions. Well, they're only trick questions if you don't know the content. If you don't know the content, every question is a trick question. That's how it works for me. Like that question doesn't make sense. Well, that's because I don't understand the content. That happens to me all the time on exams. But if you know the content and you read the question very carefully, it should be very obvious what the answer is. And I think the CompTIA exam is very good at providing you with an obvious answer if you know the content. See, well, at least Mark says I Googled, I have regrets. Well, Mark says I answered and then I Googled and now I have regrets. I thought he had regrets over Googling. No. Mark had regrets over getting it wrong. You should have regrets over Googling, Mark. That's not what you're supposed to do. You'll notice these questions are not in the Google because I just wrote them this week. So that's why they are not in there. But you're still okay with me, Mark. We're good, right? We are. We're okay. Let's see how we did with this question. A security administrator needs to prevent all communication between two subnets. Which of the following would be the best option for this requirement? Is it cold aisle, IPsec tunnel, air gap, biometric locks, or next generation firewall? One of those two. So it's got to be one of those five, rather. And we got to figure out what it is. Let's see what you put the answer down as. Again, we're a little torn. This one's almost a three-way tie for third. We've got 39% of you say air gap. 34% of you, I love all of you, said next generation firewall. 25% of you said IPsec tunnel. 2% said cold aisle. And 1% said biometric locks. So I guess that is the two that we were kind of fighting over. Is it an air gap or is it a next generation firewall? And this is one that I mentioned earlier that I myself was a little torn because I come from a background of a systems engineer at a next generation firewall company. So I was going back and forth over this one, but the question specifically asked about preventing all communication between two subnets. That means nothing in there. No content is being sent between either of those. No data flows, no data at all, no communication between those devices. So therefore, we have to decide how can we prevent all communication between those subnets so that nothing ever flows between any of those. And in that particular case, your only answer of all of these five should have pointed you in the direction of an air gap. An air gap is a very secure form of security because you are physically separating these devices. You are unplugging the connection between those two, that even if you wanted to communicate between those subnets, you would never be able to because your data can't, well, I won't say it can't go through the air because we all know that data can go through the air, but there was no mention here of a wireless network. We have an air gap in place. An air gap is one that allows us to physically separate these devices so you will never be able to communicate between those. And if you have a very, very secure network and you want to make sure that no one ever has access to that network who isn't supposed to be there, then we can have things like a stock market network. If you have a power systems network, I've done a lot of work with power companies. Power companies always air gap all of their SCADA systems. Airplanes are another good example. Airplanes have an air gap so that you don't have access to the entire network that's in the cockpit. Your network access is only to the streaming movies that you can watch on the airplane. And then lastly, maybe if you work in a nuclear power plant, you're eating the donuts and you realize nobody can access this network because we are air gapped from anything else that may be out there. Air gap is indeed the correct answer here. 40% of you chose air gap on this list, and you would be right for air gap. But I understand why 34% of you chose next generation firewall, because next generation firewalls are just so good at what they do. Next generation firewalls, though, are designed to allow communication between different subnets, allow and block certain information, but certainly next generation firewalls could have a rule in the firewall that says block all traffic between these two subnets. The problem with any firewall, and this is sort of outside the scope of the exam objectives just a little bit, is that occasionally you might add a rule to the firewall that inadvertently allows traffic where you did not want it to flow. This happens all the time on corporate networks where you have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of firewall rules. Somebody adds a rule near the top of the list that allows traffic that you wanted to block later on down the list. It's an ongoing challenge with many network professionals and security professionals to constantly maintain and audit their firewall rules. In fact, there are third-party products you can buy that are all they do is audit your logs. That's how important this particular task is. But at some point, someone could change that rule. They could add a new rule. There could be ways to allow traffic between those subnets, even if you have a rule that prevents it. So next generation firewall wouldn't be as good as an air gap might be. Now, if you don't have a choice, if you don't have an air gap, let's take that off the list. Let's say air gap was not the option here. That was not the answer you could choose. Then I think your best answer would have been next generation firewall. So the 34% of you came in with the second best answer, but not what I would say is the best answer when we're talking about preventing all communication between two subnets. Air gap really is the right answer here. As much as I love my next-gen firewalls, air gap is much better than a firewall. We often would make fun of older firewalls. They're nothing more than a cable. They're not really protecting you. Well, what you do is you cut the cable in half. There's your air gap. That is the ultimate firewall, is an air gap. IPsec tunnels are not a bad choice. 24% of you chose that one. So a quarter of you said, we'll use an IPsec tunnel. But an IPsec tunnel, it allows communication between two devices. It just encrypts all the data across that tunnel. It doesn't prevent communication necessarily. That's not the point of an IPsec tunnel. Although I guess if you were not connected to the tunnel, it might prevent it. But we're talking about between two subnets. We don't usually have IPsec tunnels between two subnets that are on our single area or single section of the network. Usually those two subnets might be in different locations, and now we're getting a little bit outside the scope of this particular answer. And of course, if you have a username and password, you're still able to transfer information between those two subnets over the IPsec tunnel. That was not the intention. The intention was to prevent all communication. So I think we can take answer B off the list. IPsec tunnel would not do it. We have 2% that said a cold aisle. If you go into a data center, one of the aisles will be hot, where all of the hot air is blowing out of the servers, and the other aisle will be cold, where all the cold air is coming from the cooling system to pass through those servers. That is used for cooling in a data center, has nothing to do with preventing communication. And lastly, biometric locks. Unfortunately, our packets and frames don't have any type of biometric authentication associated with them. So we can't use our face or our handprint or a thumbprint or anything else to be able to allow or disallow traffic. It's almost always used for authentication for a user. It does not prevent communication between subnets, meaning our best answer here is indeed air gap. 40% of you got that one absolutely right. Some questions in the chat room came up about this one. For example, is a next-gen firewall affected by the ACL? Well, a firewall does. If you're using a firewall, the rules that are in the firewall are effectively an access control list. They are a way to have access and to control that access through the network. And the firewalls may not call them an ACL. For example, a Palo Alto Networks firewall has a set of security rules called security policies, but those indeed are ACLs. We just call them security policies in the world of a Palo Alto Networks firewall. So hopefully that's given you some thought as to how you can allow or disallow traffic through the network. Before we go to the next question, I want to thank Hobbying at Mike's with the $5 super chat. Says, thanks for the study session. Going for the Security Plus in 2 weeks. The clock is ticking, Mike. When I pass, I'll have completed the CompTIA trifecta. Loving the material. Thank you, Mike. And we appreciate your $5 super chat. Best of luck with the Security Plus. 2 weeks. Now it's time to really get through all of the things that you need to get through. Go through the exam objectives, circle anything that you might need a little help on. Those will be the topics you want to cram during that the first and second week you're working along there. That might help you too. Again, air gap was the right answer. If you answered C, 40% of you got that one absolutely right. There's so much information in Security Plus, and I don't mean that flippantly, because it is so full of content. The Security Plus exam, probably one of the larger exams that you will run into with CompTIA, just a lot of different exam objectives. And so what I wanted to do was to provide a way to take everything from all of my videos, because there are over 100 of the many hundred of these videos. There's a lot of videos. And how can we take everything that's there and consolidate it down into one point? So I created a set of course notes. Are there 177 videos? That's probably about right. You can see the table of contents is just enormous for the Security Plus exam. This set of course notes has over 121 pages inside of it, and it has all of the text from every video. It has the important graphics. It has charts. It has tables. Everything I put in these videos that's important is in this set of course notes. Those course notes are available in a digital form. There are also physical versions of the course notes available. There's the physical book. It contains exactly the same information as the digital version. It's just in a form that is able to give you a much more physical connection to the course notes. And if you purchase the physical version, you also get this digital version for free. So you have some options there as to how you like to grab that data and somehow be able to take it and use that information. And that's really the best way to go through my content that's in my videos is in the course notes. You can find out about the course notes, practice exams, and everything that we have on our site at professormesser.com/601CN. That's 601 course notes is what that stands for, 601CN. There's different bundles. In fact, if you get the course notes, there's a cost for the course notes. If you get the course notes with the practice exams, you get a little bit of a discount. So it just depends. Visit the link on there to my website for details on what the pricing might be for both the digital and the physical versions for you. professormesser.com/601CN. Let's do another question. I'm talking too much today, apparently. So we're going to get through a few more questions. This question asks, a security researcher, let's click the right one, has created an image from an infected storage drive. Which of the following would be the best way to ensure non-repudiation of the image? Would we keep a backup of the image, create a digital signature, store the drive in a locked cabinet, transfer all data over an encrypted channel, or hire a third party to store the image? A security researcher has created an image from an infected storage drive. Which of the following would be the best way to ensure non-repudiation of the image? Would it be to keep a backup of the image, create a digital signature, store the drive in a locked cabinet, transfer all data over an encrypted channel, or hire a third party to store the image? If you think you know the answer, follow the link that's on your screen at professormesser.com/QA. See if you happen to know what that answer happens to be. That's your link. Please don't answer in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. We'll put it in right there, professormesser.com/QA. All of these questions with the words and the definitions and the things you would do. Another good example, though, that a flashcard is not going to help you with these. CompTIA doesn't have a lot of trivia questions. They don't have a lot of questions that ask you things like, what does SFTP stand for? It stands for Secure FTP. You'll never get a question like that on the CompTIA exam. They will not give you one. That's a little bit of a gimme. That's even less than a gimme. That's just an obvious one. There are some easier questions on the exam than others. Of course, the questions on the exam vary in their difficulty level, and we feel that the more complex questions or more difficult questions tend to have a higher score. Because we do know that every question on the exam is worth a different number of points. We just don't know what those points are. CompTIA never tells us that. But we believe that is indeed the case, and we think that's how it works. So a question like this one might be worth a few extra points rather than a question that simply asked, what does SFTP stand for? You will never, ever, ever see a question like that one. Instead, you'll see one sort of like this that asks, which of the following would be the best way to ensure non-repudiation of the image? Now we have to know a lot about this. What are they doing? They created an image. What is that? An infected storage drive? What's he talking about? We need to ensure non-repudiation. Big words. Is that like a $20 word? How does that work? And then which one of these different options, backup, digital signature, lock cabinet, encrypted channel, storing the image, these are all good questions. So make sure you're familiar with what all of those might be. How about a way to go through them? We've worked hard to create some very good performance-based questions in our practice exams. So if you're looking for more performance-based questions, that is a good place to go. I'll show you some of the practice exams in just a bit. Sort of near the end, we'll go through what some of those might be. Let's see how you did with this one. Cold aisle was the answer from that last question. A cold aisle. Have a look at what that might be. Yeah, Google the cold aisle. It'll give you plenty of pictures. You'll be able to see all that and see what options might be. Let's see how you did with this one. A security researcher has created an image from an infected storage drive. Which of the following would be the best way to ensure non-repudiation of the image? Keep a backup of the image, create a digital signature, store the drive in a locked cabinet, transfer all data over an encrypted channel, or hire a third party to store the image. How did you answer? 59% of you say you would create a digital signature. That's a pretty good number given that the next closest answer is answer A, keep a backup of the image, which is effectively tied with C, store the drive in a locked cabinet. Those are with 14 and 12% respectively. And then 9% said transfer all data over an encrypted channel. 6% said hire a third party to store the image. Well, whenever you start talking about proving that you are the one that had this data, or that you are the one that captured this information, or you need to prove that not only has the information not changed, you're the one who can confirm that information has not changed, and you do that by using a digital signature. A digital signature says this data has not changed, and we really were the one that sort of stamped that said this is the data as it sits here today. If somebody was to go into that image and they change one bit inside of that image, one piece of data that's inside of that image, the digital signature would not validate. And somebody would immediately be able to tell somebody modified that data, which can be incredibly important when you're collecting data, especially in things like a law enforcement type scenario. You want to be sure that data goes nowhere. This allows you to have a lot of confidence, because you can't somehow change the data in a way that will still keep the digital signature valid. In fact, if you were able to do that, digital signatures would be relatively worthless. So non-repudiation is a very important security technique. It's one that you will run into over and over and over again in security, and you should be very familiar with non-repudiation and how it can be implemented. So this is a very good example of that. You've imaged a drive. It has some infected data on it, and you want to be sure nothing ever changes, or if somebody comes to look at that data later, they can confirm that nothing has changed with that data, and it came from you as an individual. There's the non-repudiation part, is that it is associated with you because you're using your digital signature. It's effectively the same as a regular signature, isn't it? It's like folding over the piece of paper, putting the wax on the paper, and then putting your stamp on it. So nobody can change anything in there unless they break that seal, and you can obviously see if the seal is broken. That would be a non-validated digital signature at that point, because somebody broke the seal and changed the data. So it makes it very easy. This is just the digital version of breaking the seal and changing the data and validating it by looking at that digital signature. That is the right answer. Answer B. There were other answers in here. 14% said keep a backup of the image. But if you were the one wanting to change the data, you could change the original data, and then you can go in your backup and change the backup of the data, and no one would ever know. So that doesn't help you at all. There's no way to get non-repudiation from that. We got stored the drive in a locked cabinet. Same problem occurs. Locking a cabinet doesn't prevent anybody from changing the data. If you've ever looked at the lock-picking lawyer, you know that putting anything in a locked cabinet is not a way to protect the data. So there's your gratuitous YouTube recommendation. If you have not visited that channel, it's time to visit the channel and learn about physical security with the lock-picking lawyer. 9% of you say transfer all data over an encrypted channel, and that is a very good way to transfer data, but has nothing to do with non-repudiation, especially if somebody's sitting in the middle of that conversation with an on-path attack. They could be modifying the data that is sent back and forth. Non-repudiation not going to work with you there. And then hiring a third party to store the image. Well, if the third party's working with you, you could change all of this out. So that's not going to help you either with non-repudiation. The only answer here that provides anything close to what we would like is answer B, which is exactly what we were looking for, creating a digital signature, and 59% of you got that one absolutely right. Well done with that. I want to thank KJ in the chat room with the $9.99 super chat. KJ says, passed my Security+ exam earlier this month thanks to your videos, practice exams, course notes, and study groups. Wow, it's a lot, isn't it? When I start thinking about it, you're absolutely right. I'm glad you were able to take advantage of those, KJ, and congratulations on Security+. KJ says, read each question in Messer's voice, and you can't go wrong. Thank you. I should probably make just some type of soundboard for that with all of the most used words, and you can do it yourself. Have it all that way. Maybe I need an audiobook form of my practice exams. KJ, congratulations on your Security+ exam. That's a good one to have in your pocket. And thank you also for the super chat as well. We sure appreciate that too. Let's do some more questions. I know I'm talking a lot. Don't worry. We'll get through a couple more. I've got more here for you. This next question on our list asks this one. An organization is evaluating the process used to collect information about the efficiency of a manufacturing process. Which of the following would provide this evaluation? This is totally a 601 question, isn't it? Is that BPA, NDA, MOU, SLA, MSA? That's just a lot of letters. An organization is evaluating the process used to collect information about the efficiency of a manufacturing process. Which of the following would provide this evaluation? There's a lot of process in this question, isn't it? Maybe too many processes. I'll work on that next time. Which of the following would provide this evaluation? Is it BPA, NDA, MOU, SLA, or MSA? See if you happen to know what that is. That is one. Yes, there's one of the challenges, and for those of you that have already been through Network Plus, you may be thinking to yourself, could there possibly be any more three-letter acronyms or just acronyms in general? Certainly, we only have these acronyms in our list. So when we get to Security Plus, we realize, oh no, we're not done yet. There's plenty more acronyms to go through, and here's a really good example of these. Some of these you could probably pull one or two of these from the Network Plus, but some of these are definitely Security Plus acronyms that you should be familiar with. Let's see how we do with those. It's going to be a good one to break down what this one happens to be. I have to figure this out. So let's see if you know what this happens to be. Yes, once you lock in your answer, you can't change it. So not quite like a real exam, is it? On your actual exam, when you lock in an answer and you go past it, and then you come up to another question that reminds you about something that you now realize you got a question wrong earlier, you can back up to that question and change it and then keep going. CompTIA exam, you can jump around to any question at any time. Not all exams allow you to do that. Cisco, for example, their exams don't allow you to do that. Once you submit the answer, you can't go backwards. So CompTIA allows you to jump all over the place and change answers. So unfortunately, for the system we're using today with Socrative, once you lock in the answer, you can't do that. Can't go back. But that's okay. It's not like this is the actual exam. So you'll be fine to figure out the details of this. We'll have to figure out what the answer is as we step through these. And this is one, by the way, that is a new set of topics. So maybe it's something that you just weren't ready for, weren't recognizing when you went through it the first time. Let's see how you did with this one. An organization is evaluating the process used to collect information about the efficiency of a manufacturing process. This is, I know it sounds funny in the question, but this really is a process to examine another process. Which of the following would provide this evaluation? Is it BPA, NDA, MOU, SLA, or MSA? There's a lot of letters in here, and all of these have something to do with something. So let's step through what a number of these might be first off. Let's start with SLA. There were a number of people in the chat room that I think were thinking service level agreement, but a service level agreement doesn't evaluate any type of efficiencies and provide a way to evaluate those efficiencies. A service level agreement is a contractual setting of what we expect from someone else, but it doesn't actually measure what they are providing. It just says you have to be here in 2 hours if we have an outage, but it doesn't go back in time and say, well, over the last year, here's how long it took you to come in after an outage. That's a very different one to be able to break those down. So it would not be a service level agreement. How about a memorandum of understanding, an MOU? An MOU it's a way to at least have an informal description of what we would like to do together as two organizations. It's not necessarily and really isn't considered a signed contract. There's no real legal force behind it because we have not signed anything. Maybe we sent some emails back and forth and said, we sure would like to do this. Oh, we would like to do that for you. Great. Here's our memorandum of understanding. Got other options in here. The non-disclosure agreement is one where you would have parties that agree not to talk about what we did here. When you go to Vegas and it stays in Vegas, that's a non-disclosure agreement. So that might help you. for those of you that have been to Vegas and for some reason may have something that you don't want to talk about. We've all signed the non-disclosure, which means we don't talk about it. That's the disclosure is non. You may not do that. Got other options that are here. One is a BPA, a business partnership agreement. BPA. Business partnership agreements are ones where we want to go in business together and we want to spell out what that means. You will be responsible for this. I will be responsible for this. We will both take the profits or the non-profits and we will deal with those in this way financially. So we've got ways to deal with profits and loss for our businesses because we documented that in our business partnership agreement. But if you're trying to measure a process and determine, is what we're doing, are we doing this the right way? Is there a better way to perform this process, especially with manufacturing? Are there things we can do to really determine, are we measuring things and able to make decisions on the data that we are measuring? First, is it accurate? I'm making business decisions on these measurements. Are we even really taking the measurements properly? One thing we might want to perform is a measurement system analysis, or an MSA. That's what we wanted in this case, to be able to measure and calculate how certain or uncertain are we of the measurements that we happen to be taking, because we have to make business decisions on these and we have to know the data we're basing those decisions on is as accurate as possible. So in our case, an MSA is what we were looking for. Answer E is what we wanted. And you can see that 36% of you chose MSA. Not the majority, but it is the plurality in this case. We have a tie for second place with 24% each between SLA and BPA. 11% said MOU, and then single digit 5% said non-disclosure agreement, or NDA. Now, I realize we are at the top of the hour, but I've been talking a lot. So we're going to do another question. We're into some extra time here on the clock. So let's do another question as we skip through this one. We can get more of these done. Next on our list is a question that asks, an attacker has captured all traffic from a switch without using a tap or on-path technique. Which of the following would allow the attacker to access this data? Would it be wireless jamming, blue snarfing, denial of service, MAC flooding, or a malicious script? An attacker has captured all traffic from a switch without using a tap and without using an on-path technique. Which of the following would allow the attacker access to this data? Would it be wireless jamming, blue snarfing, denial of service, MAC flooding, malicious script? It's got to be one of those. If you know the answer, follow the link that's on your screen, professormesser.com/QA. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. I have a t-shirt made up with that. Please no answers in the chat room. Please no hints in the chat room. See how we did with this one. See if we're familiar with this topic. What would we use to get the data? Well, we didn't tap. We didn't use on path. So what would we use? It's got to be one of these, right? See if you happen to know what it is. Go to professormesser.com/QA. Lock in your answers. We'll have to figure out what this one happens to be. You may have to think a little outside the box because we don't have a tap and we don't have an on-path technique. So what did we do to get access to all data, all traffic from a switch? It's got to be one of these, right? This is one we definitely need to be familiar with. Lock in your answer. Go to professormesser.com/QA, and you can lock in what you think your answer might be. Should be a good one to really break down what these answers are. See if you're familiar with these. I see a number of people thinking they know what the answer is, but this is, you may be surprised at what this answer might be. See what you would do with this. This should be a good one if you're familiar with attacker type techniques and these types of things that might happen on your network. That's what it would work through. See if you're familiar with these. All of these, by the way, again, are from the CompTIA exam objectives. So all of these are topics you should know. If you're going through this list of wireless jamming, blue snarfing, denial of service, MAC flooding, malicious script, and you're not sure what one of these happens to be, or you may think, I don't know enough about that topic, make sure you go in and have a look at these different topics. Make sure you're familiar with what these might be. This would be good to know. So this is where you should really focus on what makes sense and perhaps in some cases what doesn't make sense. Let's see how you did with this one. An attacker has captured all traffic from a switch without using a tap or on-path technique. Which of the following would allow the attacker access to this data? Would it be wireless jamming, blue snarfing, denial of service, MAC flooding, or malicious script? If we click show results, we're not sure. 36% of us say it's MAC flooding. 32% say it's a malicious script. 22% say it's blue snarfing. We've got a few options there. And then single digits, 9% said wireless jamming. 2% said denial of service. One of the keys here is you're seeing that all of this traffic has been captured. Every bit of traffic from a switch. So already, this is something interesting. It's something unique. Normally, you don't get all traffic from a switch. So how could you possibly get all of that? And one of the techniques that allows you to do this is one called MAC flooding. That's because the table that's inside of a switch that keeps track of where devices are located. This is the big list of MAC addresses and what interface on the switch all of those MAC addresses is associated with, so that when the switch receives that data, it can send it out to the specific interface on the switch that applies to that MAC address. So what an attacker will do is simply send out so much traffic with different MAC addresses that we fill up that table. The table gets too big. It now overflows the table. And the problem is that the switch now understands there's data that I'm now missing. There's MAC addresses I don't know about. And instead of simply dropping the traffic, the best option the switch has is, I don't know where this traffic goes. My table is full. I don't have the information I need. So instead of dropping it, let's send it to every interface on the switch. Let's just flood the switch up with traffic to every interface that's out there. This means that what you used to have in a very directed switch now turns into a very non-directed hub. You turn the switch into a very non-intelligent device that simply receives a frame on one interface and copies that frame to every other interface on the switch. I mean, that's effectively a hub. That's what a hub does. And that's what MAC flooding does for you, is it turns that. And because all traffic is now being flooded to all interfaces, the attacker just simply needs to plug into any available interface on the switch, and now they're able to capture all of the data traversing that particular switch. That is MAC flooding. One way to prevent this from happening is to turn on port security, or what is appropriately named port security, on your specific switch, which will limit how many MAC addresses can be registered from one particular physical interface on that switch. I guess logical interface as well. So switch port settings can be configured with port security, and you can allow or not allow that. If you would like to find out more information on MAC flooding, it's in section 1.4 under MAC flooding and cloning. That is the video you'd like to go through for MAC flooding. That is the right answer. 37% of you, which was the plurality on this one, did get answer D correct, MAC flooding. Now, what about these other options, though? 31% of you said malicious script is what you would do. The problem, though, is if you put a malicious script on someone's computer, then it will be able to perhaps capture all of the traffic for that computer, but it won't capture anything else that may be going on the switch. So you're only getting information specific to that user, because that's the way a switch works. The switch is only going to send you information that applies to you and doesn't apply to anyone else. But our question asked about capturing all traffic from a switch, and unfortunately a malicious script is not going to be able to capture all traffic from a switch unless somehow you were able to put the malicious script on every single device that's connected to the switch. The problem is that that's probably multiple operating systems, it's routers, it's other switches, it's firewalls. There is no malicious script that kind of covers all of those different bases. So a malicious script would not be the best way to implement or capture this data across everything on the switch. Other options are blue snarfing, which really does not exist anymore. It's kind of an old, outdated Bluetooth technique before we had any type of significant security associated with Bluetooth. These days, we do lots of Bluetooth security, so blue snarfing no longer an issue. But back in the day, I guess, but indeed, that's just Bluetooth data. That is not capturing any type of traffic from a switch, so that would not be the correct answer, even if it was something that we still did today. 8% said wireless jamming. Wireless jamming would prevent traffic from traversing a wireless network. Technically, I guess we could call that a switch because it is a bridge, but you're preventing traffic, not capturing all traffic. So wireless jamming does not capture all traffic from a switch. And then lastly, denial of service, almost a similar problem. Wireless jamming is a way to deny service, and denial of service will also prevent traffic from communicating. It doesn't allow you to capture all traffic from a switch, so it would not be denial of service. Only 2% of you thought that in the case. MAC flooding in this case is your best answer. It is the only one that makes sense in this case. 38% of you chose MAC flooding. And that is one of the ways that you could make that happen. How would you implement MAC flooding? You need to have some type of application that is able to send a lot of MAC addresses into the network. So there's lots of source MAC addresses. You're constantly sending thousands and thousands of frames that have different MAC addresses on them. So usually there are applications that can allow you to do something like that. Those would be very malicious applications in the implementation. It's something that people don't want to have on their network, which is why we generally would turn on something like port security and prevent that from happening. That is the key. Those are the things we were looking for. And in fact, that is indeed the right answer. MAC flooding, if you answered D, MAC flooding, you got that one absolutely correct. Well, we went through a lot of questions today. They all come from the objectives. I mentioned this in the exam earlier on in the live stream, that the exam objectives are a critical piece of information. These are free. They are available on the CompTIA website. You go to professormesser.com/objectives and download the exam objectives, something that might help you as you're going through this list. It's a great checklist when you start your studies. It's an even better checklist, I think, when you're ready to take your exam, because it will tell you very clearly whether you are or are not familiar with every topic that's listed or could be listed in the exam. That is exactly how that would happen. So make sure you download those objectives. There's a link on my site, professormesser.com/objectives, or simply go to your favorite search engine, type in CompTIA exam objectives. That is exactly where you should go. Before we finish up today, there was a mention earlier about practice exams. And indeed, practice exams are very valuable things to have. And I have written a set of 3 complete tests that I have published in my CompTIA SY0-601 Security Plus Practice Exams book. Lots in this book to be able to pull from. I've got lots of things that we could go through and answer. So I have a question up, in fact, from my Security Plus book. Maybe we can go through this question and see how we did. So this is a question from my Security Plus book. It asks, Rodney, a security engineer, is viewing this record from the firewall logs. And I'm not going to spell out everything that's in this record. For those of you on the podcast side, you may want to have a look at the video replay. But it's showing a time and a date. It's showing an AV gateway alert. It gives me an IP address, a port. It gives me an arrow, another IP address, and another port. It says gateway antivirus alert. It gives some strange xpack.a_7854, and it says Trojan blocked. This says, which of the following can be observed from this log information? Is it that the victim's IP address is 136.127.92.171? Is it that a download was blocked from a web server? Is it that a botnet DDoS attack was blocked? Or is it that the Trojan was blocked, but the file was not? Now, I have different options. You can go to a quick answer and see what the answer is straight away. But this is a PDF, so I have built into the PDF links. So if I click on the details, it takes me directly to the answer page, which is back in the back part of the book. So it jumps right to it, where it gives me the question again, and it says the answer is B, a download was blocked from a web server, and I give you an explanation, a very detailed explanation on what the answer happens to be and why that is the correct answer, which I think is really important when you're studying from exams like this, that somebody has really gone through and not only created a question that applies to today's exam objectives, not all of them do, but it gives you a detailed breakdown of why that was the right answer. Now, my problem, of course, is I never get the right answer. I always get the wrong answer. So what I've done in every question in this book is I give you all of the incorrect answers, and I tell you why each incorrect answer was wrong. That way, if you did get it wrong, you can understand why you got it wrong. And I also say that even if you got this one right, I highly recommend that you read through the wrong answers so that you understand when those particular answers might apply, because on your actual exam, you might have some of these other topics. So this gives you more of a whole complete view, a well-rounded view of really each one of these topics that we are going through. And if you don't even understand all of this, maybe the question that was asked, you're wondering, I don't even understand the question. Forget the answers. I don't even understand what you're talking about. At the very bottom of this list is a link to the video. So you can go directly to the video that this question was pulled from. And there's even a QR code. If you get the physical book, because there is a physical book version of this, it's a thick book. But if you get the physical book version, you can just point your phone camera right at the QR code, and it will pop open the video right in your phone so you can read the book and watch the video at the same time and really get an understanding of what's going on. Now, in my PDF reader, I can now just click the back arrow, go back to that question, and then go to the next question that's on my list. So that is my set of practice exams. They are available on my website, both in PDF form and as a physical book that you can purchase. And again, if you get the physical version, you can download the PDF version immediately for free. It comes with it. Have all of those ready to go. Find out more about that on my website, professormesser.com/securitype. Stands for Security Practice Exams. We do one of these Security Plus study groups every month. This next study group, you can see September is a little chaotic. Normally, these are one week after the other. We always have them on a Wednesday. It's just a normal month, but no, not September. No. We have A+, one of the A+ on the 6th, the other A+ on the 12th. We have Network Plus on the 28th, and then the day after, we're going to see how well my voice does on the 29th. On the 29th of September is the Security Plus study group. Lots going on there. There's a lot happening in September, but we still managed to get all of the study groups in there. So fortunately, we had that there, and we're able to go through these. We'd love for you to come back in September, and these dates obviously can change. So always check with the calendar. Go to professormesser.com/calendar so you know exactly when the next event is going to be. It's a good one to be familiar with. I also keep these in the events channel on my Discord, so you can always step through that. You'll know exactly when the next event is going to be. Well, although I'm done asking you questions in this first hour, before we do that, I'd like to tell you that if you'd like to earn a CEU, a continuing education unit credit for this study group, you want to go to the Professor Messer website, click on the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website. There's a link that says Contact Us. Click that link in the top or the bottom of the website. When you click Contact Us, it'll bring up a form. Put your name, your email address. In the subject line, please put August 2022 Security Plus. And then on the body of the message by itself, put our super secret code words of the month, MAC flooding. MAC flooding is our super secret code word of the month. If you'd also like to put anything else in that message, you're more than welcome to. That's something you can easily do for this. Feel free to have a look at that. Again, go to the top or the bottom of the Professor Messer website, click Contact Us, put in your name, your email address, the subject line, put that this is the August 2022 Security Plus study group, and then in the body of the message somewhere, hopefully right at the top on a line by itself, please, go to MAC flooding. Put those words in there. Type MAC flooding. And then anything else you'd like to do. I do read everything you put into these messages. I'm not able to respond back to all of them because I get hundreds of these every month, but I do read through every single one of them. And thank you so much for what effectively turns into cards and letters. So thanks for sending those along to me. So that might be useful. We have more to come. We're not done yet, although I'm done asking you questions. We're going to turn this boat around, and now you're going to ask me questions in the after show. Stick around for that. In the meantime, don't forget about Twitter and Instagram, where we have our weekly Security Plus pop quiz questions. You can also go back over time and look at previous questions. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. We'd love if you subscribe to our channel. You can visit us at professormesser.com/YouTube and subscribe to us straight away. Don't forget about our discounted vouchers and exam hacks on our website at professormesser.com/vouchers. And our course notes and exams are also available at professormesser.com/securitycn. Stick around for the after show. Thanks for being here in this first hour. We will see you next time on the Security Plus study group. All right, I got to drink something. Okay. I can talk. I can say things. Let's start the after show, everybody. Welcome to the after show. Sort of like the original show, except in this case, you're asking me questions in the chat, and I'm answering those questions in effectively real time. Before we go into much of this, I want to thank Dom the Kid for the $4.99 super chat. Dom says, military here, we get 10 days to study for Security Plus. Wow, that is an aggressive schedule. Dom says, I wouldn't have passed without your videos. Thanks, Professor. I can't believe you did it in 10 days. You guys are crazy to go through that in 10 days. I guess it can be done, though, right? Dom did it. So that had to be an aggressive study schedule, though. Congratulations for sticking with that, and congratulations on passing that exam. Thank you so much for the $4.99 super chat and supporting what we do here. I also want to thank Sisman in the chat room with the 25 PLN super chat. I'm taking the exam next week. Hopefully I can get a few shots afterwards cheering for you. I hope that's going to be the case as well. I would love it to have that. So please let us know how the exam goes. We always like to get exam updates in our email. You can always click the Contact Us link and let us know how things went. I always like to get a follow-up from those and get some familiarity with how did it go. Don't leave me hanging. I want to know if you passed or not. And if you didn't, we'll figure out our strategy and we'll go attack it again. There's always a way to regroup, figure out what we might want to do, and go in and take this exam again. Because really, that's your worst case, right? Just take it again. How bad is that? It's not bad at all. There have been exams that I've taken where I've had to take the exam 3 times before I was able to pass that exam. So industry exams are just, certification exams are just odd. In some cases, it takes a couple of times to finally get the hang of it, and then you finally got it. So hopefully for most of you, though, you go in the first time, you're ready, you know the objectives, you hit it head on, and you're able to completely go through every question and just crush it. So I'm hoping the best for you as well with all of those. And thank you, Sismon, for the super chat as well. We appreciate your support. Now, if you'd like to ask questions, I will answer almost any question you might have. Go to the professormesser.com/live. Oh, I've got a lower third I didn't even put up. I've got graphics for this, everyone. I spent time on this. Let's put the lower third up. There it is. See, that's important. So now we've got the information. This is the link on my website. You can also go to, if you're watching this on YouTube, it's the YouTube chat. That's what we're looking at. So as I go through my list of things, I have it right here, and the chat just goes up the screen. I've got it here right to the right, right there to the right of me, right? So we've got all of that, and you're able to ask questions from this, and we can see how well we do with some of these that we're doing. It doesn't have to be about Security Plus. It could be about technology. It can be about the industry, or some of you have already said it could be about what games am I playing right now, which is a really good question. I'm all over the place with some of these games and what we're doing right now. I'm kind of stuck in EVE Online. So if any of you are on EVE Online, that's what I'm doing right now, is trying to figure it out. I've only been trying to do this for months. It's probably the game. The game. If you ever looked at EVE Online, the getting into the game part, the curve that it takes to learn in that game is long. It's a big curve. And I'm just at the very beginnings of that curve trying to figure it out. But it's a lot of fun. It's always something interesting going on. Another question in the chat room, Elias asks, which program is the best to start on? Is it Security Plus? Is it A Plus? Is it Network Plus? And I could probably take that question. I'm going to bend it a little bit because a lot of people ask me, what do I take next? It's almost the same question. Where do I start? Where do I even begin? Some people will tell you you need to take A+ first. Other people will tell you you need to take Security+ first. Other people will tell you something different, maybe another certification exam altogether. This is the real challenge, of course, is knowing where you go with that. And that's really different for everyone. The answer that I always give when people say, what do I do first or what do I do next, is I always turn the question around because it really depends on your scenario. First, it depends on what you want to be able to do with your career. What's your next step? Do you need an entry-level position? Are you looking to move to a different position? And perhaps more importantly, what do the hiring managers want you to have? Which I think is the real answer, by the way. The real answer is what will get you to that next step in your career. So sometimes this requires you to go out to your favorite job posting site, look at all the jobs you would like to apply to, and see if any of those are asking for certifications. This also will depend on your geography. If you live, for example, in the U.S., in the Washington, D.C. area, and you live in Virginia or Maryland or any of those areas in D.C., those areas love for you to have Security+. In fact, they don't care so much about A+ or Network+. They want you to have Security+ as your entry level. But if you were to go to Dallas, Texas, you may find that most of the jobs there may not want you to have Security+. Very different depending on where you happen to be in the country or in the world. And that's why I always tell people it's not really what I think your next step should be. In fact, it's really in some cases not even what you think the next step should be. The real question is, what do employers want you to have? This is assuming, of course, that you're trying to get a job or get a better job. So I would always recommend that you do some studies. There's a link in the YouTube video description on this video of how to get a job in IT with no experience. And I talk about going out to these sites, gathering all of this information across multiple job postings. See if you can find 10 different job postings that would really apply to you, that you feel you're really qualified for. Look at those job postings, get about 10 of them, and then have a look at what they're asking for. Are they asking for a certain type of knowledge? Maybe some type of degree? Are they looking for certain industry certifications? Are they looking for a certain type of experience? Are they looking for you to be familiar with type of software? Those are all important things to know. And if you start going through this list with 10 different jobs across 10 different companies in your area, and you notice with 7 of these, they're asking for A+. Okay, well, that's a good data point. You might want to think, maybe if I have to choose, A+ might be statistically a better choice. But you may find other jobs may be asking for a Microsoft certification, a cloud certification, a Security+ certification, a Cisco certification, or something else. And in those cases, it makes a lot of sense if you focus on those particular certs, especially if they come up over and over and over again. So the real question is going to be about what other people want you to have, not necessarily what you want to have. Now, what happens in this industry generally is you start moving up, you get out of the help desk, you get into server administration, Linux administration, you get into networking or security. And when you move into those areas, whoever's going to be your manager or the organization you work for will say, it would be great if you became an expert in this thing. That's a pretty common thing in many of these organizations so that we can spread the knowledge around. So in your organization, there might be 2 people familiar with Splunk, 2 people familiar with Palo Alto Networks, 2 people familiar with Cisco routers. There may be different groups of people familiar with these technologies. And you may be coming into a role and they think, we don't have anybody who can cover our proximity-based authentication system. You need to become familiar with proximity-based authentication. So it may be even more generic or more specific rather than being generic or even being associated with the certification. It always comes back to what the employer wants because they're the ones paying you. Now, if you get into a job where they may say, just do anything, do whatever you would like to do, well, then it's really more of your decision. It's not my decision. Do you like security? Do you like networking? Do you like the cloud? Do you like Linux? Go find a certification in those areas and drill down into that. The real great part about this is you really can't go wrong. Regardless of what you choose, whether it's any of those different certifications, you're learning and you're bettering yourself. And you're getting knowledge that you didn't previously have. And I guarantee you, for those of you, when you get through later into your career and you look back, you'll realize you're still learning. You're still using the things you learned when you got the Microsoft certification. You're still using the information you learned when you got your Network Plus. You're still learning. You're still using this information that you learned when you got your Security Plus. These things constantly build on each other, and getting that foundation becomes really important. Having a way to learn information and then build on that information is a key in IT. You will be doing it throughout your career. So just start picking technologies. I started with getting certifications that were rather generic. I got some Microsoft certifications. I got an MCSE. That was not generic. That was a very Microsoft-centric certification. So the very first set of certs I got, I believe at that time, it was about the same time I got my MCSE and about the same time I got what was called the CNX, Certified Network Expert. Now, at the time, the CNX had, I think there were 4 or 5 different CNX certifications. There was Ethernet, there was Token Ring, FIDI, ATM, and cabling. All right, so the Token Ring, FIDI, and ATM, not really using those specifically today, but the foundations that I learned in that certification, I do still use today. It's important to know, in fact, that we talk Sonnet in our Network Plus certification. I learned a lot of Sonnet when I got my ATM CNX. So that's a really good example of building on the things you learn in these certifications. They come in very useful. So even if you end up, the employer, they wanted me to get a Linux Plus, so I went and got a Linux Plus. And then later on, I got a networking cert because I wanted to get in the networking team. But what you're going to find is the moment you get into the networking team, they're going to say, hey, we need to load up this network management software so we can communicate via SNMPv3 to the routers, switches, and other devices on our network. This network management platform runs on Linux. Do you know anything about Linux? In fact, you do. You're Linux Plus certified. So it's a good example of how they really do build on each other and give you different options depending on what you're working towards. Highly, highly recommend you do a little bit of research on those to figure out what the next step is going to be. I want to thank Lazaro in the chat room with the $10 super chat. Lazaro says, hello, Professor, self-taught IT professional, 8 years of IT work experience. This is a pretty common story, so right on. Sounds good. Working on getting my first cert, which is Security+. Isn't it interesting? 8 years have gone by. Now we have to get a cert. This is the way it happens in our industry, though, is you run across a scenario where an employer would like you to have Security+, or you see a job posting, but they want you to have Security+ before you can even apply. The question here is kind of reversed, and maybe we use some of the things we just talked about with Lazaro, who says, I'm working on getting my first cert, which is Security+. What type of jobs should I look for after getting Security+? Why are you getting Security+ is the first question you should be asking yourself. Security+ is no slouch. It is no easy walk in the park. It's a very difficult exam to pass. There's a lot of content on Security+. So if you're getting into this and you're taking Security+, you should already know what the end game is. You should already have a path already laid out. I'm getting Security+ because a lot of jobs in my area require Security+. I'm getting a Security+ because my current employer says I'll get an extra $2,500 a year if I get this certification. I'm getting Security+ because I like security. These are all valid reasons to get the Security+ certification. But the type of jobs for Security+, I guess it will depend on what employers are looking for. This is the time, Lazaro, where you go back to job postings. Who is asking for Security+? Maybe that's one good search to do. Search for Security+. What jobs come up? Are any of those jobs Do those jobs fit your experience and knowledge? Maybe that's what you can use. But you're sort of doing this backwards. You should have first done the research to see, how could I use a certification? Do I do a Security+? Do I do a cloud-based cert? Do I do Red Hat? Do I do A+ Network Plus? There should be a reason you're going through this. We don't just do certifications because we like to. Well, sometimes we do. So in fact, that's a perfectly good reason for doing a cert, because you would personally like to be more knowledgeable in that particular topic. But more often than not, we're creating and building on these certs so that we can get a job or get a better job. So I would think, Lazaro, your best approach to this, if Security+, because it sounds like Security+ interests you, and that's why I think you're going down that direction, if I may speak along those lines just a little bit. If you're working along those lines, then I would recommend looking in your area what employers use or would like to use that Security+ certification. And I think that's going to give you some approach to what you need to have, because you may find in some of those job postings that you not only need Security+, you also need familiarity with a next generation firewall. You need to have some type of IPS knowledge. You need to have already done some IPsec tunnels. There may be some things in there you also need to work on beyond the scope of Security+. So I would highly recommend doing that. And I think that's probably your best approach, is to go from that direction where you're putting yourself and building your skill set in the things employers would like to see, rather than simply, let's put a bunch of stuff on a page and hope that somebody likes it. Sort of a different approach to that. Not that that hasn't happened and hasn't worked before, because there are people that have taken a bunch of certs, they put it on a resume, they've submitted a resume, and they've gotten a job. But they went through that process of building the certs without any knowledge of whether there were even jobs out there to be able to take. See where I'm coming from? So I would really recommend you have a look at what jobs might be available and the things that really make sense for earning that Security+. And I think in the long run, you'll be much better off. Best of luck, Lazaro, with your Security+, and thank you for the super chat. Also want to thank Solomon in the chat room with the $10 super chat. Solomon, nothing in the comment, just here's $10. Go keep doing what you're doing, I guess. And that's what we'll keep doing, Solomon. Thank you so much for your support as well. We appreciate all of that support. Kind of keeps the lights on, as we like to say. Kendra in the chat room says, what chain of order do you recommend with using all of your content? Videos, notes, practice exams, etc. Should we watch all the videos and then take the practice exam? Should we memorize the acronyms? What do we do? And I think that it really changes depending on how you like to study. Some people love to read a book. Ironically, that's me. I like to really read through a book to get a lot of detail out of a book. So that's usually when I start studying for a certification, I start with the book or start with written material. Then once I get the written material down, or section of the material, I go watch some videos. Give me some more context. Give me visual descriptions or demonstrate to me the things I just read. That's perfect for a video. So that's why if you go to our videos for Security+, I demonstrate a lot of the command lines, demonstrate using these tools that are asked of you. And then at that point, maybe some online, some labs would be good. Having to do it yourself is a great option. We have some labs on our website that are exceptional. They are the CompTIA CertMaster labs. They are fantastic labs that take you through a number of different scenarios. Those are good to have as well. And I think once you've done those three things, videos, books, hands-on, I think the last element you need is the practice exams. Do you really understand all of the things you just went through? Do you understand the topics you read, you viewed, or you did some hands-on with? Let's see if you do, and the practice exams is your test for that. You obviously wouldn't start with practice exams. You would start with learning about the content, and you sort of finish up with the practice exams. I think that's one of those examples of where that would come from. So that's where I would kind of focus on those topics and see if that makes sense for the things you like to do. There's some people, though, they hate watching videos. They only like reading books. Some people hate reading books and would much rather watch videos. So with some of these, you could even swap out one or two of them. I really recommend you do all of them, but if you leave one of them out, just double up on some of the other things that you're doing. There is no perfect way to do this. Everybody's a little bit different. I think that can at least give you some approach on how you could step through getting the best possible learning experience from all of these different topics. Paul says in the chat room, why are software developers getting paid more than cybersecurity technicians? In California, software developer pay is $300,000 a year, which is not actually the case. Software developers don't get paid that much. Software developers probably get paid because it's just an awful job. I say that because I'm not a software developer. I don't like software development. It's not something I enjoy. So you would have to pay me that to be able to do software development. I suspect that's not really why they get paid as much as they get paid. But to be fair, people who are knowledgeable in cybersecurity, who have, there are plenty of jobs out there that can give you $200,000 a year. Those jobs exist. I used to work as a systems engineer for a next generation firewall company that was a startup that not only did we get paid very well in commissions, and there was a lot of work behind that, and a lot of travel, a lot of time away from the family, but we got paid very well for that. And there's other benefits. You can get benefits from employee stock options, employee stock purchase plan. You get benefits for medical. There's PTO. There's all kinds of things they can offer that even go beyond the scope of that. But remember, software development and information technology are two different worlds. They might as well be two different types of businesses from that perspective. Software development has nothing to do with IT. IT has nothing to do with software development. They really don't. There's a minuscule amount of overlap there. Just a little bit of overlap between those two, but they are so different that you really can't put them in the same bucket, the same scenario. Do they both deal with computers? I guess so, yes, but that's where the similarity ends. We're done there. You're probably not seeing a lot of software, especially in California. California is not paying people in California to work. The software developers in California are all coming from different countries. So that's not even applicable to reality. That's just sort of the way that we do it with doing software development in California is you bring in folks from other countries and they do the software development. Whether that makes sense or not, or whether it's right or wrong, or whether it works or not, that's what we're doing today. And that's been such a standard way to do this. I think there's a numerous and various reasons why we do things that way. And I think some of it transcends technology. It goes into the world of politics quite a bit. And but we talk technology here and not politics. But you can always focus on those things. I think somebody may be overstating the idea of $300,000 a year for software development unless they are working for themselves. Well, then you could make millions working for yourself as a software developer in your own application. Those things happen. So that's a good example. But even in IT, someone familiar with cybersecurity can be paid very well, especially if you have the years of experience to back that up. I think it's a good one to do. Will Linux Plus be enough for a Linux admin, or should I get a Red Hat cert? I think both of those are really good. They approach Linux from different perspectives. I think Linux Plus is a very good Linux certification. Many employers, I think, interpret the Red Hat cert as being more valuable. It's certainly a different cert, and I think it probably has more popularity in the industry. But Linux Plus is still an exceptional Linux certification that teaches you quite a bit about the foundations of Linux. I think just a lot of people in the industry they've known Red Hat for so long. It has been in the industry for so long that it's a very popular cert. You can't go wrong. Either one of those is pretty good. So I think that's one where it makes sense to go back and look at job postings. What are they asking for? Are they asking for Linux Plus, or are they asking for Red Hat? Now you can make a decision based on that. I know whenever I say that, it sounds like I'm throwing the question back to you. Like, I don't have an answer. Do this. And I guess I am in most ways. I'm saying I don't have the right answer. I can't have the right answer. There's no way for me to know what the right answer is. You're going to have to go do more research to find out what the right answer might be. No, that's one of those where nobody's going to be able to answer that question for you, at least not answer it realistically and accurately. The only way to answer this is to go back and look at the job postings and see what people would like. Other questions in the chat room. Will A+ help with Security+? I guess it does to some degree. There's very little overlap between A+ and Security+. I think if you were trying to decide between those and you're thinking, I'll take A+ first because I can apply those things towards Security+, probably not the case. There's just not enough overlap that would make sense. There's plenty of people that come to my site that have no knowledge in IT that start with Security+. Most of those people probably in that federal government DC area that are doing this, but that's because that's what they want as an entry-level cert. So I would say A+ probably not a good precursor to Security+, although certainly all of these build on each other because they address different parts of IT. A+ very focused on operating systems and hardware. Network Plus focused on, I don't know, the network. Security Plus focused on security type of topics. Now, obviously, there's security topics in A+, there's security topics in Network Plus, but they're really nothing like the security topics that are in Security Plus. Just a lot of security topics that are in there. So I would not recommend that if you need your Security Plus and you know you have to take the Security Plus, you live in DC, you're trying to get a job in the area, they all want Security Plus, so you're very clear that Security Plus is what you need. There's no reason you should start with A+. Just start with the Security Plus. Start right there, and then you're in the right place. That's what I would recommend to do. In the chat room, Jim asks, would I ever consider, would I ever consider teaching a course like CCNA? I consider different types of certifications all the time. We don't know what our next one is going to be. We haven't made a decision on what our next course will be. Would it be CCNA? Why not? Could it be a cloud-based cert? Sure. Would I do a Red Hat cert? Why not? The world is an oyster, so I don't know. But would I consider it? Of course. I mean, networking is definitely in my wheelhouse. It is something I love to do. There are topics in CCNA that are fun to work on. The same thing applies. I love Linux. I do lots of Linux admin. If you're on ProfessorMesser.com right now, you're on a Linux device that I administer. So I do lots of Linux along those lines. Linux would be a good one to do. Or it could be cloud. I love the cloud. That is a very hot topic. There would be a lot of people interested in cloud certifications. Maybe I do a cloud cert. I don't know. Haven't made any decisions about it. We're still months away from having to make that decision because I have a lot of other things I want to do before that. We've got A+ practice exams to release. I want to release a Network Plus practice exams. Then I might be ready to start on a new certification. We'll have to see. Have to see what the different options might be. But everything is open for this as an option. We just don't know. Of course, the chat room, the folks who haven't been here before have recommended I do Certified Ethical Hacker. For those of you that have been here before, you know there's actually absolutely zero chance in the world. So when I say anything, I really meant anything but Certified Ethical Hacker. I will never be creating a course for Certified Ethical Hacker, ever, ever, never, ever, ever. We're never getting back together. So that's why if you ever see anything from me that says I'm thinking about a new cert, just automatically say to yourself, except not Certified Ethical Hacker, because I'm never doing one of those courses. Ever. The other topics that are other questions that came in, let's flip through others of these. In the chat room, we have someone just passed their 220 1102. I'm wondering if that now completes your A+ certification. Please let me know. Or do you still have to go back? Some people do their 1102 first, and then they do their 1101. So now that you've done, you say you passed the 1102, is that now the second one? Do you have your A+ cert? I want to know. And I'd say your name, but it's in a different language, so I don't know your name. But you're welcome to put more comments in here at the bottom. I want to know. Tell us all if that's what's there. Would I do CySA? Sure, why not? Would I do Cisco? Yes. What I do, I love technology, and I like technology that other people are interested in. So that really is what I kind of focus on when I start driving down the road of what do we do next. Another person said I passed my 1002. The right now there are two different versions of the A+, the 1001 and 1002. You passed your 1002, now officially A+ certified. Congratulations, frequency, or whatever the F is. What is the F? Is it frequency? Is it it's been a while since my calculus days. Is that an integral? Integral? It's been a very long time. I had to take calculus because I was getting a degree in business management. This is universities for you. So that's one of those cases where we're going to give you a degree in one thing, but we're going to throw into this something you will never, ever, ever use ever, that it's never used in your particular line of work. We're not even sure why we did it. Maybe to make sure it would be more difficult for you. We don't know. So I took calculus. So the follow-up to that, the 1102 here is I started with the 1102, just as I suspected, now working on 1101 and doing the program through Western Governor University Cloud Computing Bachelor's. Congratulations on all of this. These are all good things to have. The 1102, get through the 1101, which is a little more memorization than the 1102 is. And WGU's got a great program. So go get that cloud computing degree. Absolutely. That's a good one to have. Put that one in your pocket. Go out and get the job. A lot of employers looking for the cloud computing degree. Let's see what else is in our chat room. Abdul says, I just want to say thank you. I passed my Security+ exam August 12th. Your materials helped a lot. Practice exams were helpful. What do you think is next for me? Well, I think you could get a job with that Security+ exam certification. That's first, congratulations on your Security+. Secondly, what do you want to do next? You know, if someone came up to me and said, now what do I do with this? I want to have a very long conversation. It is a long conversation to do this. I really want to know what interests you, what do employers want, where do you live, what things are you know, of all of these things that I can really go down to figure out what I think the best next step would be. But in reality, I kind of have to turn it around and say, go find jobs that are looking for the Security+. Although you should probably have already done that before you took the Security+ exam. We just had that conversation. But I think that's what you should do, is go find out who's hiring and what are they hiring for. And Security+ would be a good one to figure out, do they want me to have Security+? Be a great thing to have. Put that in your pocket and be able to use that. Other questions, why no CEH? Why would I not want to ever, 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 ever do a certified ethical hacker certification? Most of it is based on past performance or past actions by the group that manages that particular certification. And most of this revolves around their inability to keep your private information private. So what I would recommend that you Google would be CEH Snowden. Why don't I just do that for you? Since I'm being a little bit cheeky today, I think we should do that. If I type CEH Snowden, the very first thing that pops up in my browser is the option for, well, if I don't, that didn't work very well. That was me putting my mouse on the corner. Ethical hacking organization hacked, website defaced with, and if you follow the link, you'll get to see, I'll hit the wrong button there. We'll bring up the link. Oh, that was bright, wasn't it? The ethical organization that was hacked was the organization that deals with CEH. The passports of 60,000 U.S. military and government IT professionals are at risk, were downloaded, were there. It's the EC Council that manages that, had everything just stolen from them. So, you know, this is something that could happen to any organization. It could happen to any group. This is not just saying that this is something that I'm being sort of hard-nosed about because it happened one time, but this problem actually happened more than once. The issue here is sort of an ongoing set of perspectives or set of really bad decisions that are often and attitudes that seem to be centered around that organization. This is only one of many data points that makes me think that perhaps I would not want to send somebody over into their services or their certifications. If I'm not going to take the cert, if I don't feel comfortable giving someone that data and I don't feel comfortable taking the certification, I'm absolutely not going to recommend that you take the certification. Even if it was the best possible certification in the world, well, because all of these things happen, I'm not willing to put my particular name on that. So I'm not going to. And I'm not going to recommend you do either. Now, there are some situations where an employer may not hire you unless you have the CEH, and then you'll have to make your own decisions about that. But you'll need to go somewhere else to get training materials because it won't be from me. And that's just a decision. I've sort of put a stake in the ground, and that's just how it's going to be. What other questions? Any recommended certs for cloud security? That's a very specific niche. Not just cloud computing, but cloud security. I don't know that there's any specific cloud security certs, but there are plenty of cloud administration certifications, which include security components, because there's many things you can do in the cloud from a security perspective. So I would recommend looking at those. Most of those cloud computing certifications have an entire section on security. And there's lots of things you can do with security in the cloud and ways that you could implement security like CASB and other technologies that we simply don't have in a non-cloud environment. So that's what I would recommend you do, is step through those. Other questions in here. In the chat room, Trick012 with the $9.99 super chat. Professor, I just want to say thank you. Passed my test 2 days ago. Your course helped me get through it all. The funny part is I passed by 4 points. Lol, passing is passing. Thank you. Passing is passing. I like to say, for those of you that pass your exam where it is exactly the number that you need to pass the exam, if you pass by 4 points, I would say that you studied exactly the right amount. You did not waste any time studying more than you needed to. You did not study things you did not need to know, and you did not have to study any more time than was necessary to pass that exam. I would say you studied exactly the right amount. And the way I know that is because you passed. These exams are pass-fail. So passing by 4 points is the same as passing by 100. It is a great way, great feeling when you come out of that exam and you crushed it. But it's also a great feeling when you get out of the exam, you passed it by 4 points. You're certified. You're just as certified as anybody else. So congratulations on that. Thank you for the super chat and your support, and congratulations on passing that exam. I'm assuming it's Security+, since we're sort of talking Security+. And that's always a good one to have in your pocket as well. The problem, and some of you in the chat room are still talking about the CEH and the way that I'm sort of being absolutely straight on with you about the CEH content. And some of you say that it's not respected and it only serves as a checklist for HR. And I guess there's some truth to that. But if you were to look at the exam objectives for the CEH, the exam objectives are pretty good. It's a pretty good overview of things that are important to know about security. My problem is not the content of the certification. My problem is the organization supporting the cert. If the exact same content was promoted by CompTIA, hey, wait a second, it is. And you've got the CASP and the other Security+ certifications they're offering, all the way up to the Pen Test Plus. CompTIA already has options for that, probably for that very reason. CEH, word on the street, inside baseball, behind the scenes, the things you don't see, they don't have the best street cred. So it's not just their previous inabilities to keep private information private, but it's sort of an overall philosophy of the organization that just rubs me the wrong way. So I'm not interested in getting involved with them at all. And to be fair, they intentionally restrict people from creating content for their materials. So that's why I sort of gave that approach. It's not just like everything else in the world, it's not a black and white issue. It's not a yes or no issue. It's not binary. There's all kinds of shades of gray in there. And it's just a decision I've made that I'm just not going to do it. There's other places you can learn this content, other places that have very good training materials. Go to SANS, go to CompTIA, go to Cisco. They all have very good security training programs, some better than others. And I think that's what it's just ironic that the security certification program from this company is the one that got hacked. But as I mentioned, it's kind of like the idea that it's going to happen eventually to other organizations. We just sort of have to deal with that when it happens. Let's see what other questions are in the chat room and how we're doing on time. We're doing pretty good. Let's see if we can break through what other people may be talking about. The challenges, and I think this is true, by the way, Brian mentioned in the chat room, I talked a little bit about cloud certs, whether they are security certs or whatever they happen to be. Whether you get an Azure cert, an AWS cert, or some other type of cloud-based implementation, those are very specific certs for the cloud that you're learning. So you could become an expert in AWS. Some of that can be brought over into the Azure world, but Azure has a different way of doing things in the cloud. It's almost like a completely different set of things you need to know, a completely different set of tasks and knowledge that you would need. So when you start going down that road of becoming an AWS expert, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're becoming very knowledgeable in Azure or vice versa. So it's one of those where you kind of have to pick. What do people in your area do? What do they use? What do employers use? What is the person you're hired now that you're working for, what do they use? Maybe that makes you a decision on which way you go with this. And if you happen to be hired by someone else later and they use the other cloud provider or another cloud provider, you can then work on getting that certification later. Kind of important. Professor Messer, instead of using EC Council's labs, didn't even know they had any because I never pay attention to them. Are there any other similar hands-on labs you recommend? Well, for security, absolutely. CompTIA has some great labs for all of the things they're doing. On my website, I'll bring up the list for Security Plus specifically on my site. Under the Security Plus menu is an option for study recommendations. Why, thank you, Google, for the you get a free ad there just by visiting the website. If you scroll down a bit, there is a section for an interactive, the interactive pack, and that is a set of labs. Let's play it. I'll just show it to you. Put it up on the screen. These are labs that are in VMs. I'm going to skip ahead so you can kind of see me working through this particular, typing things in and working through it. This is a set of labs that is so well done. It's very easy to use. It has a huge list of things that can help you, and they have labs like this available for Security+, CASP, CySA, all of them. And so that'd be a good one to go through as well. Those are on my website and things you should do. Another question in the chat room was about the Network Plus. Should I get a Network Plus certification? Should that be something that I do? Should I do the CCNA instead? It's almost like you're asking two different questions, though. CCNA is not a replacement for Network Plus. The Network Plus is not a replacement for the CCNA. The CCNA, if you talk to Cisco people, they'll tell you, why would you do anything different? The CCNA is the best thing in the world. The reality is, of course, the CCNA is not an entry-level certification. It's one that probably is a second-level cert. But some people need an entry-level networking certification, and they really don't need more than that. Maybe they're trying to get a job in a NOC, Network Operations Center. Maybe they're trying to get a job with a help desk where networking has a special emphasis. You don't need CCNA knowledge. And in fact, if I was hiring for that position, I wouldn't want a CCNA in that position. It would just bore them to death. But that's why it's a second level cert. So you would kind of start with Network Plus and then lead into CCNA later. Some people prefer starting with CCNA, but you should already know, first, it's not entry level, so you're already moving up the line. And secondly, you're going to need to spend some extra time learning the fundamentals as you step through the CCNA, so it might take you a little bit longer to be able to do that. They are not, and people, they're already doing this in the chat room. They say, no, don't do Network Plus, do CCNA because it does so much more for you. But it actually doesn't. It's a different cert with a different emphasis that provides you with a different set of skills than Network Plus does. These are not interchangeable, and you should probably dismiss someone who tries to make you believe that they are, because they're certainly not knowledgeable in the intricacies of either of those certifications. Find the one that works for you. Go look through the exam objectives yourself. Go see what jobs are available in your area for each of those. Who's looking for Network Plus, who's looking for CCNA, and then make your own decision from that. Nobody else is going to be able to do that for you anyway. In the chat room, Vincent with the $20 super chat. Vincent says, Professor, I took and passed Security Plus earlier this year. Your course notes, practice exams, and study groups were key to getting it. It was big need to progress in my military and civilian careers, as exactly. Federal government, especially military, really would like to have Security Plus, so I get it. Vincent says, keep it up. We absolutely will. And I think that's why when you look at Security Plus, there are certain places where Security Plus is the most important cert to be able to get those entry-level positions. And I think especially for federal government, military, people who are in the DC area, Security Plus is almost a must. There's so much emphasis in cybersecurity that I think that's where, at least in that particular area, you can see there are entire training companies being built from the ground up to do nothing more than teach cybersecurity in the Washington, D.C. area. That's remarkable. We'll have to see how they do. Let's see how that goes, and how they work through all of those. It seems that it makes sense that if you're someone who's getting into that line of work, you need to protect data, Security Plus is a great place to start. And Vincent, I think that was a perfect solution, a perfect option. If you're in the military, you're looking to move from military to civilian or vice versa and get a job, especially in that particular area, you got to have Security Plus. It just makes sense. So absolutely, congratulations on your Security Plus, and thank you for your support and the $20 super chat as well. Let's see what other questions. Nathaniel says, I got Security Plus last week on the 18th. I'm waiting for a help desk job on base to get back to me. Hopefully they get back. So already using that Security Plus, a federal government facility, they're going to want you to have that cert. You've already got it. So now you just need to go get that job. Good luck with the callback. Let's see how that goes along those lines. That's always a fun one too. Other topics in the chat. Let's keep going down the side of this. Let's see what else we have in this list. Anything I would advise to study extra? Well, of course, I have all of the recommendations on my website where I have recommendations for Security Plus, Network Plus, A Plus, and it's a sort of combination of things I already have, like my videos and my success bundles, but I like the books from CompTIA, especially because I know the people that wrote them. I've been working with the people that wrote these books for many years in this industry. The study packs, the labs, the practice exams that are out there are comprehensive. So I put everything there into that list. So if you're ever looking for other ideas or things that might help you, that's a list that I have on my site. You can always look through those and see what makes sense for you. Folks in the chat room are correct. When you start working, especially with the military positions, especially in that area of DC, not only just the certs are important, but you may need a security clearance. Now, that's a science unto itself of getting a security clearance if you're not in the military. It does happen, but it takes quite a bit of work. You need somebody to provide you with the means to be able to get to that. Usually it's an employer that can help you with those things. And I think if you're somebody who is really trying to get into that particular set of jobs, so you're already working towards U.S. federal government, some type of military approach, having those types of security clearances can be very, very valuable to you. So it may be worth your while to go through that process. Find a contractor, find one that will sponsor you, find one that will start the process. It's a relatively involved process that can take a lot of time. So I think that's one that can really help you. Absolutely spend some time getting, if you have an opportunity to get a security clearance, go get it. Absolutely. Those things just don't fall off a tree somewhere and hit you in the head. You really got to work to get those. And if you're in a position where there's a possibility you could get that security clearance, that's what you should be doing. It kind of locks you in some degree to that particular segment of the world, that military type of segment. But take all of the things you learn in such a dynamic security environment, you can almost always apply that back into the rest of the world, our civilian markets, our regular corporate IT groups and security groups. Those are valuable skills to have. But I think when somebody gets their security clearance, it takes so long and it's so relatively valuable that you tend to stick with those jobs where you can use that clearance. It does tend to bring a little bit more money, or at least an opportunity for more money. So it's difficult not to use that clearance in those cases. So absolutely do that if you can. It can be very, very valuable, and use it throughout your career. Another question, this is a very good one, I didn't even mention it in the study group, is from Odd Gaming, who says, can I use a 501 Security Plus book to pass my 601 security exam? I would imagine finding a 501 book would be a relatively inexpensive thing at this point, because the 501 exam has been retired. 501 exam can't be taken anymore. So what I have done is I took all of the topics that are listed in the 601 exam, and I wrote them down. And then I compared and cross-referenced each one of those topics on the 601 exam. I cross-referenced them with what was on the 501 exam. And if it was new, I put a little yellow new next to it. If it's something that was on the old exam or something close to it, I put what particular topic that came from. You'll notice as I scroll down in this list, there are a lot of news. In fact, more than I was ever expecting when I went into the Security Plus. Let's go all the way to the bottom. We're going to scroll, because here's the important numbers. So here we go. We've got the total number of objectives on the SY0-601 is 1,038. By the way, on the 501 exam, it was 778. That is a significant increase in the number of things you have to know for this exam. So already it's a much bigger exam. The new objectives on the 601 that are not found in the 501 is half of the exam. So 50% of your 501 book has the information you need to know to be able to pass the 601 exam. If you want to look at it this way, the best you could possibly do if you were to walk into the exam and you've only studied from 501 materials, the best you could possibly do is a 51%. I think that's failing. That's why I always tell people, never, 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 ever study from materials that have a different number than the exam you're planning to take. And that's why, is that is an extensive change. By the way, most of the exams never do that. They are very big by themselves, but when there's an update, usually it's about a 30 to 40% change. This one was not only a 50% change, but the exam itself is 30% larger. That gives you an idea of just how much we're having to deal with there. So I could not say strongly enough, especially for the Network Plus exam, only study from materials that have been specifically written for the 601. If you have anything for the 501 or the 401 or any of the others, throw them away. They are no good to you. Throw them out. You never want to study from those. And I go back to I took the 101 Security Plus back in the day. And then through the years, we've now done all the way up through the 301, 401, 501, 601. This change between the 501 and 601 was the most dramatic change of any certification program I've ever seen. It was effectively a complete rewrite. And 50% stuck on there, still stuck around, but the other 50% added. And then, of course, 30% larger on top of all of that. That's extensive. So definitely throw away your 501 materials. Only work with the 601. I think you'll be fine. And those are real numbers. So I tell people all the time, I've already done the numbers. I've already worked through those. And that's why. It's why I do the numbers, so that I can have some idea of what I'm talking about or working through those. So that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense to you as you're looking through all of these. And it's tough because the 501 materials they're everywhere. You know, people have them sitting around, they're on a shelf. Hey, I'll just use this. It's only one different. It's only one previous exam version difference. How bad can it be? It can be really bad. Don't study from those materials. Throw them out. Not to mention, there was a lot of stuff that's no longer covered, that throughout you'd be studying things you're not even going to need to know. It's not a good idea. So absolutely get some 601 books. And in the world of books, in the world of getting a good set of detailed study books, the cost of study books, not that incredibly bad. You know, books themselves are relatively expensive. You're still paying 50, 60, 70 bucks for books, but they're relatively less expensive than having to pay for another exam. I'll put it that way. You can make the combination or comparison of between those two right there. On the in the chat, very quickly in the chat, I'll give my standard response, because the question is, can people usually find success enrolling in boot camps? Well, the people giving the boot camp would say it's a success because you paid a lot of money to be there, and they're so happy for that. For the most part, if we're talking about a 1 to 2 week boot camp, and not all boot camps are 1 to 2 weeks, because other people have sort of taken the term boot camp and extended it to be a semester, a 4-month course. You know, that's not a boot camp. To me, boot camps are 1 or 2 weeks in length. For the Security Plus, let's talk about just Security Plus. The content that you would need to memorize to be able to pass this exam, the things you need to know, the hands-on that you need to work with for Security Plus, is so much more than you would ever be able to go through in a single week or even 2 weeks. Even if you didn't sleep, if it was 24 hours a day for 2 weeks, you still would not have enough time to go through everything you need to know to pass this exam. But they still do these boot camps. They just try to shove as much in as possible and hope when you come out the other side that you'll remember just enough to maybe pass the exam. It's not a very good way to learn. And you're certainly not learning in a time frame that allows you to really understand what you're learning. So let's approach it another way. Let's say you spend some time studying. You've read a book. You've gone through my video course. You've got my course notes. Maybe you've done some practice exams. So let's go into the boot camp already knowing some of this content, which might make it easier for us to learn. Well, you've still got the problem of physics, where there's still no way to go through everything you need to know in 2 weeks. And secondly, you already know it. You've already read the book. You've already watched the videos. Why are you at a boot camp? You're going to a boot camp to tell you things now that you already know. Well, there it's already failed again. Boot camp fails on both counts. They don't work very well either way. So I would recommend, if you're someone who is looking at a boot camp, those are the 2 big reasons why I never recommend going to a boot camp. For some reason, there are certain employers who think it's a great way to get a lot of information in your brain in a very short period of time, but these are really expensive. If you look at a Security Plus boot camp, you're talking about thousands and thousands of dollars to be able to get into that boot camp. Are you going to get thousands of dollars of results on the other end? Most likely not. And the ones that I have seen that have been pushing their boot camps, in some cases are not probably teaching in things that are going to be useful for you day to day after that point. So it's just not financially, it's not a good equation there. There's not a good ROI, a return on that investment. What you're looking for is a much longer term. If you really want to go to a class, it's a much longer term class. We're talking about a month, 3 months, 4 months. I've seen 6-month classes because you can go into a facility or go online. You're with the same group of people every week. Maybe it's 1 class a week. Maybe it's 2 classes a week. It's at night or it's during the day. You've got some different options there. And I think that when people start looking at boot camps, they're hoping to find the easy button. They're hoping to find the shortcut. They're hoping to find a way to not have to spend 3 months of their life going through this content and learning everything. Well, guess what? There are no shortcuts. There is no easy button. There is no quick way to learn this content. So boot camps, generally speaking, for IT-related certification programs, do not have an ROI that's really worth anything. So that's why I don't think there's much value there. If you are, as Kevin in the chat room says, well, I'm already enrolled in one. I got to go take it. They're putting me through it. The VA's putting me through it. So I'm going anyway. I'm locked in. And I think Kevin has exactly the right approach to this. I plan on self-study until then. If that's the case where you can't get out of it, or somebody is really saying, no, you're going to this boot camp, try to learn as much as you can before walking in. Certain sections of it are going to bore you because you already know what they're going to go through. But there's so much going through this boot camp in such a short period of time that unless you've already gone through this, there's no way you're going to pick up any nuances of it. So I would absolutely recommend that you do exactly what you say. Even though it kind of defeats the point of a boot camp, as I've told you, boot camps don't work. The physics behind a boot camp can't possibly work. The only way you can help yourself is walk into the room with some knowledge already in your brain. I think that's a great approach, Kevin. I think that's what you should do. So you're exactly in the right place. How long do you think it would be a good amount of time to prepare for the exam? 6 weeks? What would it be? It's a question that's different it's an answer that's different for everybody because different people learn at a different rate. People have different sets of knowledge that they've gained throughout the years in whatever they've done. I would say on average, this is an average with a very wide standard deviation for you statistics people, is the average is about 3 months for Security+. That most people spend 3 months studying and go take the exam. I think we've already even seen an example of that today of somebody who did exactly that. It's an average, but I mentioned the standard deviation is very wide, which means not everything approaches that average very well. There's people on both sides and a very wide variation on both sides. Some people take a month. Some people do it in 6 months. Some people do it in 3 weeks. But it really depends on your knowledge, how much time you have to study, the study materials you have available, how well you do with studying. There's so many things that can change those time frames. So I would say most people 3 months, but it's going to change depending on you. And I've seen people go into this and got material for a week and they go take their exam and they passed. But they already had some knowledge in security. They already worked in IT. They had some work that they did associated with these. So a lot of the topics they were already familiar with. Other people like me, I need a lot of time. I would say if I was sitting down and taking the Security+ today and I had no previous knowledge, that knowing my world and what I do probably would take me 6 months. I'm a 6-month certification person. So it takes me a long time. I got other stuff happening. I got responsibilities. I got things I got to do. So I'm not going to be able to sit down for 4 hours every night and study. I might get an hour. I might get 2. And that's when I'm cutting things out. Like, I can't spend time with you. I can't do this gaming. I can't do this other thing. I'm just going to study for 6 months and get an hour or 2 in every night. That's probably how I would do it. And I'm also a kind of person where I like to really understand the topics. I tear them up. I rip them apart. I Google them. I do some hands-on. I really want to do it. I really want to understand. Oh, next generation firewalls. Let's load one up. Let's do this. Let's look at the log file. Let's configure an IPS function of that. Let's do antivirus filtering. Let's set up a security rule. Let's do an IPsec tunnel. All those things. I want to do it. So that takes even more time. But I'd say 3 months is a pretty good average. If you were trying to get a barometer, that's where I'd set the barometer. 3 months. Another question in the chat room. This is a good one, and I'll have people. I look forward to your cards and letters. How are brain dumps even legal? I heard about it on the CompTIA subreddit. There was literally a PDF where I recognized questions from my exam word for word. Never heard of them until the exam. Well, they call them brain dumps because they don't want to call it cheating. They don't want to call it unethical. They don't want to call it what it is, which is just cheating. It's just cheating. That's all it is. Someone has gained access to questions and answers from the exam, and they are either selling those questions and answers or they're handing those questions and answers out, knowing that they are actual exam questions. Now, there will be people probably in this chat, and I look forward to your cards and letters, who will tell you, no, this is not cheating. It is the situation where we are simply becoming more familiar with the exam objectives. That's all. They really wrap themselves into a pretzel to either try to convince me or try to convince themselves that it really isn't cheating. And I'm here to say there's no question. It's absolutely cheating. There's no nuance here. It's cheating. There's no debate here. It's cheating. That's why if you go to your exam objectives, let's go to our exam objectives, shall we? How did I not have the objectives up already? Well, of course, I have a link to them. So let's look at our 601 exam objectives, shall we? Pop these up real quick. There we go. Here are our exam objectives. I'm going to scroll for the SY0-601. On the first page about this exam, there's a section in here called CompTIA Authorized Materials Use Policy. It says, CompTIA Certification LLC is not affiliated with and does not authorize, endorse, or condone utilizing any content provided by unauthorized third-party training sites, aka brain dumps. Individuals who utilize such materials in preparation for any CompTIA examination will have their certifications revoked and be suspended from future testing in accordance with the CompTIA candidate agreement. In an effort to more clearly communicate CompTIA's exam policies on use of unauthorized study materials, CompTIA directs all certification candidates to CompTIA certification exam policies. And there is a link right there that will take you there. Please review the policies before beginning the study process. Candidates will be required to abide by the candidate agreement. If a candidate has a question, maybe you're wondering, is that Professor Messer? Is he legit? Is this a brain dump on the Professor Messer website? You can simply send a message to CompTIA and they at examsecurity@comptia.org to determine if it is or not. Now, I can tell you, of course, I am a CompTIA Platinum partner. In the world of partners in CompTIA, there's about 30 of those in the world. So everything on my site is legitimate. It is authorized. It is not cheating. I write everything myself. All of my questions in my practice exams are original questions that I personally write. I don't farm it out. I don't ask someone else to do it. It's a list of questions you have never seen before, and that's intentional. So that's why I am very strongly recommending that if people are concerned about these brain dumps, trust me, they're very easy to pick out. They even say on their websites, these are actual exam questions. Okay, well, thanks for telling me straight up that that's not a site I need to go to. It's very simple. And trust me, they have ways at CompTIA, because I've seen this happen, where they are able to determine, based on how you answer the questions, if you have used unauthorized study materials to be able to answer those questions, which I find interesting. There's a whole set of statistics behind that. I guess a bunch of PhDs do that part. That's not something I have the skills to do, but they do. And that's why after you take your exam, you'll notice you'll get a passing score on the screen, but you don't get the final you passed message from CompTIA until about a day later. And that's because they go back and look at, statistically, does it appear that you used unauthorized materials or not? So that's why. Plus, by the way, cheating in a certification exam might help you get a job somewhere, but you're going to get fired pretty quick because you know nothing about what you studied or that you were given an exam on. You have a certification that doesn't help at all with that. So that's why I tell people, do not get into a case where you're somebody who is going to not do a very good job on these certification exams because you studied from the wrong materials. Always check your materials and know that you're using materials that are not going to be a problem with CompTIA. And if you're ever wondering if it's going to be a problem with CompTIA, you simply send them an email message at examsecurity@comptia.org and they will confirm it for you. I personally have found people that have posted exam information on YouTube, and I've told CompTIA about it, and they had the YouTube videos removed because it's their copyrighted materials. So that's where these things come in. That's where the challenges come in with this, is finding the right materials. And in my world of creating content for certifications, I really feel that your long game here is to not just get a cert, but understand what you're learning and how to use this content. Because when you get into a job, you're going to need to know how to handle these security situations, how to configure the firewall rules, how to do all of the things we need to do in security or networking or in doing server or workstation administration. These are valuable skills you use throughout your career. If you don't learn them, then you're going to be in trouble. You're going to have very big career problems you have to deal with. So absolutely go into these the training that you're doing. Go into your certification studies with the idea that I need to really learn the topics. I need to understand the foundation of these topics. That's really the key. Memorizing a bunch of questions and answers isn't going to help you in your career at all. In fact, it will probably limit you in your career, and you don't want to be in that position either. There's nothing worse than being in a job and worrying that you know nothing about what's going on around you. We already have a little bit of that in IT. You should always be in an IT job where some of the job is stuff you have to learn. There's constant learning because technology is constantly changing. So you will be put into positions in IT where you need to learn and become familiar with those topics because there's no other way to do it. But it shouldn't be everything that you work with in IT that you know nothing. That's really a bad situation. So don't ever get into that trap of working through or studying from materials that are just a cheat. You're cheating, not just cheating the exam and the whole system. You're cheating yourself. I sound like my dad. You're cheating yourself. That's what's happening. That doesn't even sound like my dad. I'll know what I'm doing there. But that's the situation. Avoid those. You'll be much better off. And in reality, if I may, aren't you the one that said it was easy to begin with? Oh, that exam's easy because I use these cheat materials. Of course it's easy. That's what you want to avoid. Don't be in that position. CompTIA is very good at picking them out, and you don't want to be the person that has all of their certifications revoked, and you can never take a CompTIA exam again. That'd be very bad. Nellie says, how can I register for your class? Where can I find the book? Don't have a class, don't have a book. So you can't do either. But all my training videos are available to watch for free on YouTube. Just go out to professormesser.com/YouTube. Pick the list you would like. A+, Network+, Security+. You're on your way. Watch that first video. A lot of people's frequently asked questions are in that first video. So if you're ever wondering, should I take the Network+? Should I take the A+? Should I take the Security+? Where do I take it from? What do these videos do? What do we do next? They're all in the first video. So that's where you should go. So I don't do a formal class. I don't do a live class. I don't do a real-time class. Everything is on demand. You get to study at your own pace. Each of the videos is cut into smaller little pieces so you can study as you go. Most of us already know this already, but have a look at that, Nelly. Hit that first hit that first video, and you'll be able to really see what I mean. A lot of the frequently asked questions are right in there. It's a great way to do it. Let's see what other questions we have in the chat. We're getting close to end of our time. I don't know why I looked at the clock. It's really end of our time is when I can stop. I can't talk anymore. Is the way this usually works. For home lab to practice, Robbie asks, would you recommend using something you may see in the enterprise like Ubiquity, or would I recommend setting up pfSense? All of those are good. In fact, if you go through my video on how to get a job in IT with no experience, the link to that video is in the YouTube video description of this video. I talk about how do you get experience with these technologies when you've never had a job with these technologies. And a good example, I use two really good examples in there for setting up a home lab. I really think home labs are incredibly important. If you just take anything in your life that you spend a lot of time on, take one night a week, and instead of being on the Xbox, you download and install pfSense with Snort. And maybe you don't even do it all in one night. You just download it and you stumble through the installation process and you hit a brick wall and you Google the solution and you get it installed and finally it's running. You know, that's maybe a night or two or three in my world. Finally, you got that done. That's going to give you much more valuable information than reading a book on how to do it or watching someone else do it. And you only took out of your time some online time with your game. That's not a huge change in your investment there of your own personal time, because your time is valuable. I get it. But spending that and creating a home lab gives you stories. pfSense. pfSense is an open source firewall with some really fantastic features. There are a lot of different implementations of pfSense, but the best place you can go for those is pfSense.org. That's where you can download. They have even virtual appliances in the cloud. You can download and run it locally in a VM. Lots of people that can help you with pfSense and what they're doing. What you'll probably want to go to is either the community section or the download. Why go to the community? We just want to download it, right? Let's install it right now. That's how I usually go with this. Pick a version. You don't know what they're talking about. Maybe you're installing it on a 64-bit in Linux box. Let's install it. Let's do it through a USB memory stick, and we'll do it over a maybe the front end that I'm using is going to be just a serial connection, so it's not graphical. Or maybe I would like to use VGA. It's a VGA console to use that, and then where you want to download it from. Download the code, install it, and run it. That's it. There's your first lab. There's another lab I mentioned also in there that is doing an Active Directory lab, which I think is a great lab to do if you're on the Windows side. So both of those are great labs to set up. Now, what's important of these, by the way, is not you don't want to rush through it just to say, okay, I got it installed. We're done. Lab's finished. Home lab is done. Thanks, everybody. That's not the point of this. The point is to actually stumble through the installation to find the places where it didn't go well. In fact, it may be worthwhile to even document those. Oh, well, when I installed it, I grabbed the AMD 64 version. When I tried to install it in a VM, I ran into this error with my VM player. I had to upgrade or get a different version. And then we finally got it installed. I applied more memory to it. There's all these things that happen. And the reason I tell you to document the problems you ran into is because here's the question you're going to get when you finally sit down for an interview with someone, is they're going to say, tell me about a technical problem you ran into and how you solved it. Oh, well, I just did this. Let me talk to you about the latest installation I did in my home lab with pfSense. It was crazy. Here's what I did. And you can go through all of these problems you ran into with pfSense and how you got it installed. And maybe you installed it on a separate machine and you plugged it in as your home firewall and you set up some rules in your home firewall. And then you found some traffic that was being sent to the internet that you had no idea was even on your network. Trust me, you will find this. but you found it in the logs of pfSense, and there were all these stories you now have. In fact, you could probably even create some reports from pfSense that you can have with you that you could show somebody, here's what happened there. pfSense is just one of many examples you could choose. There are lots of great either open source or free firewalls that you can install out in the world. Maybe you want to install one on hardware. Maybe you want to install pfSense. Maybe you want to install one of the other mini firewalls that are out there. Maybe you want to have pfSense, but also load up Snort, so you can have not only a firewall, but an IPS. These are great. You can run it as a VM. You can run it as a separate machine. You can run it as a VM and actually pass your own traffic through it. There's lots of ways to do this. So find the way that works for you. There's lots of ways to implement pfSense. And there may be some live pfSense installations on the network, on the internet, that you could even log into and play around with it to get an idea of the things you might be able to do with it. But again, doing it yourself and putting in your lab with your data that you're passing through your firewall gives you a much better set of stories that you can now use when you're in that interview. And you'll talk for 30 minutes about the installation process, the problems you ran into, how you solved them, how you finally got pfSense up and running, how you found a rogue process that was sending information to a particular website. There's all these things that'll happen at that point. But document all of those stories so that when you walk into the interview, you got a bunch of war stories in the trenches. You can talk about the things you went through. Very, very valuable. So it's almost like the ultimate lab, but it's a home lab. It's something you're doing on your systems. You can set it up as permanent on your network. Maybe it's something temporary. Maybe it's something where it's not even looking at your live data. Maybe you just want to go through the installation process so you're familiar with it. And then, of course, the person interviewing you, if they're techie, they may be asking questions. Oh, what Linux distribution did you use to load that up? Oh, was it a VM? How much did you allocate for space for your RAM and your storage? Did you find the performance worked very well with that? How many separate network interfaces were you using? What type of traffic did you see going through the most? Was there something interesting that popped out you weren't expecting? Those are things that all come from installing that one single home lab. And that's just the first. Once we're finished with pfSense, let's load up PGP. Let's load up Snort. So we have an IPS running. Let's load up, let's do an IPsec tunnel. That'll be another one. So all of these projects that you could put together of building out connectivity, configurations, they can all be done in that home lab. Let's say that you didn't have enough memory or storage space to do a VM. Let's say that you didn't have another machine you can install this on. One of the things you might want to even try is something like Packet Tracer. For those people that are Cisco folks, they already know about Packet Tracer, which is more of a virtualized environment where you can build out your own networks in Packet Tracer. We talked about this a bit in the last study group I did for Network Plus because it really applied to that. Packet Tracer, though, is a great place to build out routers, switches, connectivity, send traffic through the network, try to do some break fix. There's a lot of great Packet Tracer labs out there that you can download that are broken, and they say, go fix this. Okay, well, there's some troubleshooting you can do. So those things can be also valuable because you can tell somebody, well, I pulled in this Packet Tracer lab. It was OSPF. And we were configuring between one device and another at a remote site, and it was a dynamic routing scenario. And here's what we did. You can go down the whole route with that. It's a lot of fun, though, working with these technologies, and you're learning something every time you touch it. So that's the real key. Can we put in place a home lab to apply the compliance part of cybersecurity? Well, you might be able to if you can find a good lab for compliance. Generally, the labs you're doing in your home lab are more technical labs dealing with the infrastructure. So that may be the easy way to do it. But you may be able to find, maybe you've got a home lab for an MDM. There are not a lot of those out there, but there are some. You can find an MDM to install, a mobile device manager. And now you can configure policies in the MDM. Maybe you want to connect your mobile device. Maybe you don't. But maybe you then want to apply some of these policies and see how it affects your mobile device. There's lots of things you can do. And really, it's just your imagination takes you down that road of figuring out what's next on that list. I think these home labs are incredibly valuable. Everybody should have a home lab of some size. And I think it's a great way to bring something to the table, especially if you're just getting started in technology. Other people walking in the door are not going to have this knowledge. They're not going to set up a home lab. But here you are, you're wanting this first job on the help desk, and you've already worked with Active Directory because you built out your own Active Directory server. You configured a bunch of people and devices in Active Directory. You've already set up and reset passwords. You set group policies. You've applied those group policies. If you want to see how to do that, in my latest A+ videos for the 1102, I have an entire video on Active Directory where I've set up an Active Directory and we've done those things. And there's plenty of videos on YouTube that can also step through a home lab with that. If that's the job you're going into, do a home lab with Active Directory. So who else is going to walk in the door already knowing about Active Directory, already knowing how to use the tools, already knowing about resetting passwords and configuring group policy? And then of course you can add it on your resume because you set it up. You already know about Active Directory. You're already running one at home. And when they ask, oh, tell me, I see here that you've done some things with Active Directory. Tell me what you've done with Active Directory. Oh, it's running my house. I built out Active Directory. I have a whole domain set up. We're running it there. And I've set up a bunch of virtual machines. We're running through it. I do that all in the video. And it's a great conversation starter. And it's a great way to prove to somebody you know what you're talking about when they say, do you know Active Directory? Oh, let me tell you. Because I guarantee you the first time you install Active Directory, the DNS is going to screw you up. It's going to mess everything up for you. And I'm not going to tell you how to fix the DNS problem, but I'm going to tell you you're going to run into a DNS problem, and then you're going to need to fix the DNS problem, and you're going to fix it. Well, there's the first conversation you have when somebody says, tell me about a problem you ran into and how you solved it. Oh, let me tell you about the first time I installed Active Directory. What a mess. Here's what I did wrong, and here's how I fixed it. That's really a 15-minute conversation, 20 minutes you could go through with those. Very, very useful. And getting some labs can always help. Before we go, let me quickly answer another question that came in. Should I learn Network Plus first and after learn Python? Well, why not learn them both at the same time? I say, why not? Why don't we have both? I think Python and or PowerShell are two very good skills to have in your resume. In fact, they're almost required as far as skills go. Having some type of knowledge of automation is what every employer is looking for. Whether they really know it overtly or not, they really want those skills. And it can do nothing but help you if you know PowerShell and or you know Python. Knowing them both is even better. Anything that you can do to show automation, to show some knowledge of the cloud, and show some knowledge of those core skills, Active Directory, security, firewalls, IP, whatever it is, can be very, very useful. So that I think would be very, very good to have. Don't just wait to get Network Plus before you start working on those. Implement your Network Plus studies into your PowerShell and your Python conversations, into everything you're doing around those two. Both of those would be really good to know. And there's lots of great videos also on PowerShell and on Python. I would recommend you go look at those. Very, very useful. So I think there's quite a bit to cover there between both of them. And I think we've covered a lot of that today. Before we go, I want to thank Liam in the chat room with the $2 super chat. Liam doesn't have a question. He just says, I want to say I appreciate all you do. Well, I appreciate all you do. I appreciate you being here. We would not be able to have these study groups without your support, like the support we also get from Daryl IT with his $2 Canadian super chat. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you Canadians. I'll, of course, let Mrs. Professor Messer know that the other Canadians are checking in. Always important to know. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your time in that first hour and answering the questions. Thank you for your questions in the second hour. We always have a good time with those. We've got a lot to do over this next month. Of course, we've already got our next study groups already scheduled for September. Come on back for our A+, our Network Plus, and our Security+ study groups. I'll just have all brand new questions for you, and we'll, of course, take all of the brand new questions in the after show as well. Thank you for being here. Thanks for joining us. We will see you next time on the Security+ study group. Thanks, everybody.